when a cool breeze from the emerald forest drifts through the window, waking him. Small chimes on the wooden sill clink together in the quiet morning air. He sits up on a rough wooden bed, pressing his palm flat against the coarse linen. He feels the straw shift beneath him, trying to figure out who he actually is. Two entirely different sets of memories are currently fighting for control inside his head. One belongs to a young hunter from a village he has never actually seen. The other is a modern college graduate familiar with traffic lights and instant noodles. They keep swapping places. Who is he really? Where is he? And is any of this real? To find out, he stands up and walks over to the window, peering down at the street. It looks nothing like any place from his past. Morning mist still hangs over the road. Caravans rumble, women put out clay pots. They arrange them carefully under shop awnings. Nearby, a blacksmith's apprentice works. The young helper swings the shop door open, hanging up his sign. The entire scene makes it undeniably clear that he has been dropped somewhere new. Welcome to his new life. Apparently, if his new memories can be trusted, magic exists here. The deceased boy's memories suggest this strange world runs entirely on mystical energy. Terrifying goblins, kobolds, and mud monsters are things an ordinary farmer might easily encounter. Even deadly dragons and devils are real enough to tear down entire kingdoms. Professional adventurers exist, divided into what locals call character classes. Gifted people learn to channel magic and deadly combat skills. Mages, warriors, druids, and rangers are not just fairy tales, they are very real. This is their everyday reality. Naturally, his nervous heart starts beating a lot faster. Regular people cannot just choose a class here, but he has a major advantage. He did not arrive empty-handed. A special golden finger came along with him. It is a magical book that exists solely inside his own mind. The title reads The Adventurer's Handbook. Focusing on it, 3 separate sections unfold. He sees the attribute panel, the monster compendium, and a map. This floating interface finally brings some peace to his racing heart. The detailed attribute panel displays his brand new name, Gaus. His strength is 5, covering his physical power and lifting capacity. Agility 5, flexibility and basic coordination. Constitution is 5, which dictates his stamina and recovery rate. Intelligence sits at 6, enhancing his memory and mental processing. Perception and charm are both 5, representing his basic senses and personality. He currently has 0 skills, remaining completely average in almost everything. That single extra point in intelligence is likely a transmigration bonus. He is essentially an ordinary guy with a slightly better brain. Still, it is comforting. Gaus turns the mental page to the compendium. The database divides creatures into distinct threat levels, starting from ordinary. It scales up to legendary, with a mysterious final tier locked away. Right now, he can only view the basic ordinary section. Even there, every icon remains grayed out and completely unselectable. A system message informs him that he must defeat a target first. Only then will the entry unlock. The system also tracks his kills. Reaching milestones will eventually grant him some highly valuable rewards. Rewards are simple. This system does not do subtle, just kill things. Fill the handbook and collect the prizes. The final tab is a map he activates, causing a full layout to drop right into his mind. A tiny stone house icon sits dead center, marking his exact spot. A text prompt invites him to name the building. So he quietly thinks of Sophia's Inn. The icon instantly labels itself, but almost nothing else is illuminated yet, just the narrow street right outside his door, everything. Beyond that is completely shrouded in thick fog. The handbook treats exploration like a game, requiring him to physically walk and unlock areas. He has not even left his room yet. Closing the virtual book, he packs his few belongings and heads downstairs to start his day on. His meager budget only allows for breakfast. The first floor serves as the dining area. Lobby combined, a few round wooden tables sit there, completely empty at this early hour. He greets Sophia, ordering breakfast with a polite thank you because his past life drilled manners into him that refused to die. Sophia's place is officially registered as an inn, but in reality, it feels closer to a cheap, converted youth hostel from his old world, an old house crammed with cheap beds for people without a permanent home, like the local freelancers and wanderers. Single room costs just 2 copper coins a day, or 30 copper coins monthly. With a discount, which is incredibly cheap, breakfast costs 1 copper coin, while lunch and dinner are 2 coins each. It keeps him alive but barely. Black Bread, sour pickles, wild vegetable soup, stewed beans, and bland oatmeal. Eating meat is a luxury meant for other people. A middle-aged blonde woman steps out from behind the front counter, greeting him warmly as Little Gaus. To ask if he overslept, he admits honestly that sleep was impossible last night, especially with his recent hunts turning up completely dry. He slumps into a chair. At an empty table, she gently insists he still needs rest, soon returning with a wooden tray carrying his breakfast. The black bread is pre-sliced, looking incredibly hard, sitting next to a steaming bowl of vegetable soup. Once Sophia goes back into the kitchen, Gaus picks up a slice and taps it against the wooden plate, making the distinct clack of two solid pieces of wood colliding. He holds it up to the morning light. There are literal splinters in this. Unbelievable. This has to be eaten the way the original host did. He drops the slab into soup, waiting for the heat to soften it up, then spoons a soggy bite into his mouth. The texture sliding down his throat is sticky and pretty nauseating. It is the kind of food that actively scratches his throat. Even though he prepared himself, the reality still stings. His past life had fully stocked supermarkets and 3 decent meals a day, even on a basic salary, but this garbage is the cheapest possible food for the poorest peasants of a harsh fantasy world. He forces it down anyway, completely numb to the chewing by the end, when Sophia warmly calls out for him to be careful. He waves back, stepping out to face his first morning on the wrong side of the universe. The bright sun has already cleared the peaks of the distant, towering mountains. The golden light spills across the gray stone rooftops of Gray Rock Town as the rugged frontier town slowly wakes up right at the edge of a massive, dark forest. Merchants haul heavy goods down the dirt streets. Small groups of armed, rugged adventurers march past, but most people are poor freelancers wearing the same cheap gear he has on. The original Gaus was a nearly broke hunter, relying only on a dagger and traps. He used to patrol the outer forest edge, trapping wild rabbits and pheasants for 20 copper coins each on lucky days, since meat was expensive. For local commoners, a good day brought 3 rabbits, earning 50 to 60 copper coins, but some weeks he caught absolutely nothing for days on end, surviving only on gathered wild vegetables, forest fruits, and medicinal herbs on the long walk home to avoid returning completely empty-handed. And some odd jobs hauling village produce to town, and the kid barely survived. It was a rough life. He had spent a year living alone, relying on inherited trapping skills and extreme frugality to scrape together 3 silver coins and 65 copper coins. His ultimate goal was a house in Gray Rock Town, where even the cheapest shacks started at 90 silver coins before taxes drained him dry. By the previous owner's calculations, he was 30 years away from his own front door. Talk about a brutal, exhausting grind. But the money saved for that future house was going toward his first monster kill. He was not hunting rabbits today. He was going to put a goblin in the dirt, unlock the monster compendium, and see what kind of power he could gain. Escaping the gutter started with that adventurer's handbook, nothing else. He set off. He had the fierce determination of a desperate man who was about to do something incredibly reckless. But after wandering Gray Rock Town for an hour, he realized this foolish plan was far from easy. The ideal target for someone with completely average human stats was a lone, low-tier beast. Somewhere near town, but close was the one thing he could not find: the town. Guards patrolled the area on a strict schedule, and high-level adventurers churned the surrounding fields so thoroughly that the land for several kilometers round Gray Rock Town was completely scrubbed clean of anything he could fight. To secure a kill, he had to leave the protected area and try the dangerous fringes of the Emerald Forest. Before setting off, he spent almost all his savings on what the previous owner never bought: real equipment, fighting a monster barehanded, even a weak one that ordinary commoners could handle, was a mistake he would only make once. He had one life. Caution was key. He hit the busiest shops, spending 80 copper coins on a well-maintained second-hand dagger, plus 1 silver coin for cloth armor, cotton-lined and surprisingly tough enough to absorb a few hard blows. 20 copper coins bought a single dose of paralyzing poison from the herbalist. He carefully painted the homemade liquid onto his blade and let it dry. And according to the shop assistant, anything he sliced would slow down significantly. 40 copper coins went to a topical herbal paste used to seal open wounds. 30 copper coins bought standard medical basics, including clean linen, bandages, and wooden splints. He spent 2 silver coins and 70 coppers Total, leaving his wallet with exactly 95 copper coins. He refused to spend that last bit. If the mission went sideways, he still needed enough to keep himself warm, fed, and sheltered. A safety net stopped desperate decisions before they even started. This cheap dagger suited both the budget and the hunter. The original soul had trained with a dagger since early childhood, skinning, clearing brush, and self-defense. That deep muscle memory now perfectly guided his arm. Sure, real weapons hit way harder, but a second-hand sword costs double-digit silver coins, and Gaus has never even held one. Still, knowing your weapon matters more than some giant blade in your hand. Armor is even worse. Decent leather starts at 10 silver coins, while heavy metal armor is just a distant dream. Before he leaves town, he sits down at the Nightingale Tavern near the edge of Grey Rock and pays 30 copper coins for a real hot lunch. Pickled fish in a tiny dish, careful pickles, a few pieces of tender stewed meat, and a bowl of hot noodles. The portions are pretty small, but a body that lived on black bread for a whole year desperately needs some fat. He still mourns those spent copper coins on his way out, but then he burps once, feels his muscles wake up, and decides it was totally worth it. A body is an engine, so he eats. Stretching, he pulls cloth armor over his shirt, slings the supply satchel across his chest, and tucks his cloth-wrapped dagger right into his belt before walking out the main town gate. The country outside Grey Rock town opens up wide. A dry, dusty road lies under his boots, with endless wilderness stretching on both sides under a bright blue sky. For safety, the woods near Grey Rock were cleared years ago, replaced with flat pasture and grassland for clean sight lines. Guards can easily spot anomalies coming out of the Emerald Forest, since thick woods always favor monsters over humans. It is a fair trade. The trees lose, but he is not the only traveler walking this path. Lone hunters and low-level rookie teams of 3 or 4 pass by, and occasionally he spots a real professional. You can just feel the power radiating off them, the heavy plate armor, the sheer wealth showing everywhere. And how easily they carry that massive weight while moving is pretty wild. Gaus looks down at his own skinny frame, his messy cloth armor, and the cheap dagger he bought with his hard-earned savings. Suddenly, his gear looks like a complete joke. Against one of those pros, he would shatter in a single blow. He can picture it. Charging ahead, his dagger bounces harmlessly off their heavy armor, and a quick backhand sends him flying into the dirt. If he were that warrior in the full plate armor, hunting down one ordinary goblin to light up his codex would be easier than kicking a stray dog. A pack of those monsters would not even slow him down. Still, he laughs at his own jealousy. Standing there comparing himself to pro is pretty foolish. After all, real experts are not hunting weak goblins. The only reason Gaus is out here is his handbook. Just one kill will activate his codex, and then he stops being weak. Walking the long road, he tracks the exact route of the dead boy. He watches other travelers while pumping himself up. Suddenly, a few passing teams ask if he wants to join them. His basic gear must look just barely decent enough by low-tier standards to make them think he is worth recruiting. But he refuses them all, not out of arrogance though. His strength is around their level, and party travel keeps you safe. But there is a major problem here. Gaus has always worked completely alone. He has no idea who these strangers are, and teams mean trouble. You have to fight both the monster and whatever terrible choices your allies make. Better to go solo, set his own pace, pick his targets, and retreat. When you completely lack strength, playing the coward is a solid tactic. A team strips that option right off the table. The dense emerald forest swallows the sound of the road as he steps under the dark canopy. The light shrinks. Unidentifiable birds call out somewhere overhead. A strange noise presses into his ears, and the air goes a few degrees colder. He pulls out his dagger, holding his breath without even realizing it. The forest looks exactly how it makes him feel, a long, dark, eerie throat ready to swallow whatever dares walk into it. The lush, dense emerald forest barely lets sunlight through, sending a sharp chill down his spine, the kind of chill that never really lets up, but compared to the green rookies who come in here for the first time and instantly get lost, he actually has a slight advantage. See, the original Gaus made his living on the outer rim of this forest. He knew several hunting grounds and left clear markers at every single one of them. The kind of simple trail signs carved into rough oak bark to navigate back. On top of that, the adventurer's handbook lights up any ground his feet have already crossed. So the very first and quietest killer of newbies, which claims so many, is the simple Fact of getting lost in this endless maze of identical trees is not going to take him down today. The original Gaus sometimes found human skeletons on his rounds, gear totally stripped, clothes gone, cleanly scavenged by the monsters who actually live here if it were not for those terrifying monsters scavenging the dead. Adventurers alone could have bought him a cozy house. He moves at a steady pace, leaning on the original Gaus memories and the carved markers on the oak trunks until he reaches a quiet hunting ground he chose specifically for what was around it. There are goblins in the area, not too many, and he is here on purpose. About a month back, the kid had not caught a single thing for days, so he opened this ground up, set traps, and made a modest living off it. Then one early morning, with the sky barely turning gray and the forest fog still thick, he came out to check his traps and found fresh blood where the prey had been taken before he got there. Someone beat him to the catch, a goblin. He sized up the footprints fast. Child-sized footprints, no shoes, and incredibly fresh because rain the previous day had pressed them deep into the soil. No barefoot child wandered this deep into the emerald forest, and the footprint size matched a common goblin almost exactly. He abandoned the ground out of caution and never came back until now. He refocuses and runs a quiet warning in his own head. Even if those prints back then came from a single goblin, that does not mean only one works this area. He recalls everything he knows about them: pointed ears, dark green skin, murky eyes, thin limbs, never very strong, always male, short, and highly gregarious. They prefer meat, occasionally pick berries, but with a brain completely incapable of productive labor. In a bloodline full of mean-spirited little quirks, they survive purely by robbery and plunder from first breath to last. They steal food and women, and they cannot reproduce within their own tribe, so they raid for mates. The species they target most is humans because their physical builds match. Local villages know this grim story by heart. They take food, tools, and women, leaving a long, dirty trail in their wake. In terms of combat, an ordinary goblin is exactly what you would expect: weak alone, beatable by a single farmer with a decent weapon. They make up for it with numbers, and honestly, that is where things get dangerous. If their numbers grow, they grow teeth, and a whole village gets eaten, breeding like rats. Multiple young to a litter, near perfect survival, just 1 year from squealing. From infant to sexually mature adult, once they mature, they go right back to raiding for the next round. The only good ending for this species is complete extinction. Goblins are his first target now. Neither the dead boy nor his modern, educated self feels even a shred of sympathy. None at all. Pep talk over. Time to put his guard back up. The goblins in his memory are weak, but he has never killed one in person. Practice makes perfect. Life is singular, both his and the goblins, and everything fights to stay alive on pure instinct. This is real. No game, no adventure. He takes a breath, unties his satchel, and buries it under a tree with a thick layer of leaves, easy to find, hidden from sight. His silver-white dagger is already coated in a thick, paralyzing poison. He chose a sunny window seat during lunch on purpose, letting the herbal coating dry and harden onto the metal. Now, the silver blade has an eerie green sheen. He is not expecting much from cheap poison, but 20 copper coins of slow is 20 copper coins of slow, not an instant freeze. The real fight is with the dagger itself. He grips the handle, letting the dead boy's muscle memory take over. After a moment, his grip feels right. The angles feel right. He crouches, brushing leaves aside, searching the ground, looking for tracks. Hunter habits. Living things leave traces, especially low intelligence beasts that do not bother to cover them. Footprints, fur, scat, food scraps, and drag marks. The forest is loud with information once you know what to look for. He finds it, a clear footprint in the dirt, fresh from the last 2 days. This goblin is still working this ground, probably the stolen kid catch. Made enough of an impression that it keeps swinging through to see if anything has been laid out for it again. He follows the prints carefully. More prints and scat showing up the deeper he goes. The trail leads him away from the original hunting ground to a small pond not far off. He pushes the bushes aside and looks at his target. A green-skinned little monster is sitting easy on a knee-high rock, sharpening a stone spear on the surface, picking at its foot and humming to itself. There it is. He holds his breath, letting his eyes and the bushes get a long look, and believe me, this is no ordinary hunt. To him, this is the gate of his class. He does not move yet. First, he listens and looks around. Other than the rock the goblin is sitting on, the pond clearing is open ground with no Cover ideal for a head-on fight and lousy for a clean approach. The moment he leaves the bushes, there are about 10 meters of exposed grass between him and the target, and 10 meters is short for a sentence but long for a charge. If he sprints and makes noise, it will react in time. He needs to circle around, coming at it from behind, sneak in quietly, and put the dagger through before it even knows he is there. Catching it while it is grinding its weapon is the right window, and the right window inside that is when its hands are not yet on the spear. Ready against unready, armed against unarmed. The physical advantage is entirely on his side, and the fight should be a one-way street. Plan locked, he crouches and slips sideways through the brush as quietly as feet allow, settling in directly behind the goblin. Once he is in position, he clamps down on the dagger handle, his hand trembling hands. Is it nerves or sheer excitement? Sweat slicks his palm. He grips the rough handle tighter, swallows hard. The green beast is still sitting on the rock, back turned, humming and picking its foot. Completely relaxed, like a creature that has never been hunted in its life. In just a few moments, the sharp dagger in his hand will end it. He closes his eyes, takes one last deep, steady breath. Before this, he had never killed anything larger than an ant. Now he must take a life. The goblin's human shape makes it feel heavy, but it deserves to die. Suddenly, memories from the original host's childhood flood back, triggered by the sight. A swarm of goblins had brutally raided his village years ago. The villagers fought back with pitchforks, driving them off. But his neighbor, a young girl, was dragged away into the dark forest. She never returned. No one needs to explain her grim fate. This exact tragedy has repeated across these lands for thousands of years. Eyes snap open, and any lingering hesitation is entirely gone now. He digs his right thumbnail hard into his knuckle, using pain to stop the shaking. With a steady grip, he crawls forward on his belly. Holding his breath, he slips through the brush. The forest is dead silent. No wind blows at all, not a single ripple on the pond. He creeps within 3 meters of the beast, close enough to spot the coarse hair. On its green skin, he watches its muscles twitch with every breath. Slowly he stands up, moving like a kid playing a dangerous game of red light, green light. Blood returns to his legs, his tight muscles finally loosen up. Taking one more breath, he suddenly lunges forward, covering the ground. Toes dig into the dirt, launching him, 3 steps in 2 beats. Landing right on the rock, the goblin finally jerks at the sudden noise. He reaches blindly for its stone weapon. He denies it that chance. A heavy boot stomps down hard, shattering its grip on the wooden spear. Putting his full weight down, the monster's fingers claw empty air. He kicks the weapon away and drops his weight directly onto the beast. Pins its head to the stone while his knee crushes its back. The goblin lets out a sharp, ear-piercing shriek, thrashing with desperate strength. Muffled but incredibly loud, sharp fangs snap inches from his arm. Foul spit sprays everywhere, forcing him to squint on reflex. Even pinned face down, the beast fights back with an unbelievable will to live. Slender arms claw back at bizarre angles, trying to scratch him. But those sharp, gray claws only scrape uselessly against his heavy cloth armor. Cotton layers hold the damage, yet the brutal resistance makes him gasp. His chest heaves, his heart threatening to burst right through his ribs. This is a messy, basic clash with a monster. No glory here, just a desperate struggle. Pressing down with his left hand, he keeps its head pinned flat. Raising his dagger, he lines up the soft flesh of its neck and drives it home. The blade slips through dark green skin like a knife through soft tofu, releasing a dark red plume. Thick fluid pours from the wound like spilled mercury, soaking his arm and sleeve instantly. He tastes copper in the back of his throat from how hard he is gasping for air. The creature beneath him still struggles, even while bleeding out, refusing to give up. Gaus grits his teeth and twists the dagger inside the wound to make the beast bleed faster. The horrible noises from its mouth slowly turn into a broken rattle. A sputtering sound like a failing bellows slips from its throat, and then nothing. Suddenly it stops moving. He gasps, stands up, and stabs the blade twice more. Once into the left chest, once into the right, just to make absolutely sure it is dead. Only then does he drop the weapon, sinking onto a nearby rock as his strength fades. His new hunter body has the physical stamina for this, but his mind is still reeling. His chest heaves violently, and the rapid thumping of his heartbeat rings loud in his ears. Staring at the green creature on the ground, he looks down at his own blood-drenched arm. Reality feels completely fake. This is no game, and certainly no grand adventure. Real, visceral killing. He sits by himself for a while to just breathe. Once his breathing slows down, the heavy nausea of taking a life finally starts to fade. Humans adapt fast, but while his mind feels a bit twisted, he accepts what he did. Suddenly, his system handbook flashes, announcing his very first successful goblin kill. The monster compendium unlocks, recording his first monster kill. First blood is achieved. His reward is a level 0 cantrip called Mage Hand. His intelligence stat increases by 1, and the next milestone requires 10 total kills. The handbook also awards him a special new title for his single goblin kill. He is now officially a goblin hunter, and the title will upgrade with more kills. Equipping the title activates Bane, granting 10% extra damage against goblins. This bonus applies to all related evolved species as well. Now we are talking. As he focuses on his handbook, notifications stack up. Mysterious energy suddenly surges deep within him, flowing straight into his mind. Warm currents spread through his brain, down his spine, and out to his limbs. It feels like sliding into a hot spring, relaxing every single muscle in his body. As if 100 invisible hands are gently kneading away all his exhaustion. The sensation is so incredibly intense that he almost drifts off completely. Opening his eyes, it feels as if a veil has been lifted from the world. Everything is sharper. A brand new knowledge imprints itself directly onto his mind. He understands the spell Mage Hand perfectly now, and his lingering fatigue begins to wash away. Nervous tension melts away completely, leaving him feeling completely refreshed and renewed. Checking his status panel, his physical attributes remain unchanged at a solid 5. His physical traits stay at 5, but his intelligence leaps from 6 to 7. The skills section now lists the level 0 cantrip Mage Hand at level 1. Its proficiency is at 1 out of 10, but the stat boost brings another benefit. The original Gaus's fragmented memories are suddenly digested and fully absorbed. Fragments he struggled to recall all day are now instantly clear in his mind. His memory feels far sharper than anything from his previous life ever did. This increase does not feel like raw brain power, though. His logical reasoning improves slightly, but the real benefit is absolute mental clarity. Best of all, he can now sense a faint magical power waking up inside him. Power born from this change stirs inside him, faint but real, like a child exploring a new house. The Mage Hand spell is also locked in his head as soon as his magic stabilizes. He should be able to start practicing, but this definitely is not the right place for training. Not in the middle of a dangerous forest, he quickly pushes the thought aside. Monster compendium quests are clear now. His next milestone requires 10 total kills. Individual species also pay. Defeat enough of one race to open specific rewards. The system is remarkably honest. With his gains secured, he snaps back to reality. The goblin is dead, time to loot. He picks up the discarded stone spear. He weighs it in his hand, surprisingly sturdy, much better than it looks. He decides to keep it. With only a small dagger, this is a welcome upgrade. The only problem is durability. He has no idea how long this weapon will last. Even the body's original owner never carried a bow or spear. Too risky. The wilderness belongs to monsters. Direct hunting is far too dangerous and inefficient. Trapping is safer. This cautious strategy is why the kid survived so long. He keeps all his limbs because of it. Wooden weapons he tried always shattered. They kept breaking, so he gave up. The dead goblin wears only a foul loincloth. The rag stinks horribly, so he does not strip it. It is not worth a single copper. It does more good staying on the corpse anyway. There is absolutely nothing of value. Since he did not hunt in a commissioned area, he cannot claim any bounties. No materials can be turned in. The only thing worth salvage is a beast tooth necklace. He quickly cuts it loose from the neck. Nature will clean up the rest soon enough. No burial needed. He grabs his hidden satchel from under the oak tree and runs. He flees immediately. The scent of blood draws other beasts, staying put. It's a fatal rookie mistake. Nobody gets a second chance out here. He finally catches his breath once he is safely away from the kill zone. His first monster hunt went smoother than expected. It is time to head back. Hunting 10 monsters is not happening tonight. The only reason he got that kill was utilizing the original kid's detailed map and local knowledge. He had a perfect ambush planned, but such setups are rare in these woods. In this forest, low-level monsters hunt in packs. 2 hands cannot fight off a dozen. Defending against multiple angles is lethal, no matter how wide the strength gap. He is simply not ready to handle a crowd without getting severely hurt. He needs to retreat, process his earnings, and grow stronger before pushing his luck. Retracing his steps while keeping an eye on his map, he heads back. Emerging from the trees onto the main road, seeing other humans brings a wave of relief. Following the familiar path home, he finally approaches the town. By then, dusk is settling. He reaches the gray rock town checkpoint as the sun sinks below the peaks. Fading light spills over the graystone rooftops, painting the town in gold. Most of his day was spent on exhausting travel. The actual fight was only a brief moment. The guards clear him to enter. Once inside the safety of the walls, he decides he absolutely needs a mount. Otherwise, these long journeys will completely drain his stamina before he can even start fighting. With a mage-focused build, his raw physical strength and constitution are totally average. He has to budget his stamina much more carefully than a warrior ever would. A quick stop at the bathhouse washes away the heavy fatigue of his first hunt. Steam rises from him as he sheds his cloth armor, changing into loose linen. Finally, Gaus feels human again, knowing a tired body needs proper rest after fighting. He needs a little enjoyment before something snaps. The summer night in Gray Rock Town carries a clean, cool breeze. Cool breeze feels like spring water under a deep blue sky freckled with stars. Resin torches light up the busy market square in the town center. Canvas awnings hang from bamboo poles. Softly clinking wind chimes mix with the rich aromas of fresh food from ceramic pots. The body's original owner was too cheap to ever enjoy the night market. Walking through the lively market for the very first time, Gaus feels a deep sense of absolute wonder. Beyond the food stalls, he sees fortune tellers, cheap jewelry, and puppet shows. The puppets draw the biggest crowd while guards patrol. Armed guards keep perfect order. Gaus loves how bright and safe everything is, stopping by a sundry stall. Approaching a sundry stall, he asks the old man how much a goblin tooth is worth. The old man leans in closer, inspecting the crude piece with experienced eyes. He's certain it's goblin loot. Gaus confirms that he slayed the beast in the forest that very afternoon. The old merchant carefully inspects the primitive tooth and offers him exactly 1 silver coin. He explains that collectors of primitive trophies are quite rare around here. The piece is quite common. He claims this is the standard rate, but encourages Gaus to compare prices. This single silver coin is highly valuable, representing nearly a quarter of his entire savings. Still not knowing the local market, Gaus decides to shop around first. Coin matters to adventurers. Gear, weapons, potions, and elite training all demand a lot of coin. The old merchant proved completely honest, with every other stall quoting the exact same rate. Gaus eventually sells the tooth for 1 silver and 8 copper coins. Morning brings early training. He focuses on practicing his new mage hand cantrip before his shift. Without any live practice, 30 minutes bring nothing but constant failure. Then either through pure repetition or sheer luck, a spark finally takes. The magic sparks awake. Magic surges smoothly along a specific pathway inside his body, releasing a pulse. The strange magical fluctuation vibrates outward from his hands to quickly weave a physical form. Pure mana quickly weaves itself into an invisible phantom arm hovering nearby. An invisible hand floats. A massive grin spreads across his face as he wills the hand to move. Focusing his mind, he commands the phantom force to reach out and grab the steel dagger. The weapon wobbles into the air, held by a completely invisible force. He just cast magic. This is real magic. The sheer thrill hits him, just as hard as waking up in this new world. But before he can continue experimenting with his new abilities, the newly formed spectral limb completely disperses. The cloth-wrapped dagger clatters back down, reminding him he still needs practice. His system updates Mage Hand Level 1. The simple proficiency tick alone is enough to make him sit down and keep going. He doesn't leave his room all morning, though most attempts still fail. Of course they do. If he could cast every try, he wouldn't need to sit here all morning. His freshly awakened magic power doesn't have the legs for sustained casting yet, even though a level 0 cantrip is the cheapest thing on the board. The practice does pay off, possibly with the bonus from his 7 intelligence, by the time his magic is nearly tapped out. Around noon, he can cast Mage Hand pretty smoothly, half a day from no foundation to a working spell with no other professional references is that fast. Or slow, he has no idea, but he is satisfied either way. He pulls on his boots, his stomach growls on cue, and he goes down for lunch. Sophia, wiping a table, looks up when she hears the stairs, her face showing a flicker of surprise. The person coming down is thin, black-haired, green-eyed, and apparently looks more energetic than usual today, eyes bright. She cannot pinpoint what is different. She also notes that this is the first time she has ever seen him at noon, since the original owner always left before dawn. She doesn't pry. He asks if he can have lunch, then changes his mind and asks for a double portion. The food is not really what he is after, but his pockets are empty and he must make do. He is genuinely hungry. The body has started using energy to refill the magic he just spent. She tells him the lunch is nearly sold out and offers to bring him the rest, the extra on the house. He thanks her and she waves it off. Today's lunch is oatmeal, stewed beans, and pickled beetroot, and after yesterday's brick of sawdust black bread, the comparison flatters this one wildly. The beetroot has been cold pickled in a sour sauce, fruity and crisp. Soon, several days slide by. He works mage hand near town and drills with the dagger whenever his magic runs out. The proficiency climbs faster with regular reps. The panel reads mage hand. Level 2, 10 out of 20. The level jumped to 2 on the first day, but after the bump, the proficiency climbs slower for the same mechanical grind. Maybe it needs live combat to climb properly. He walks back toward town with mage hand, carrying his parcel beside him like a floating shopping bag. At level 2, he can control it fluently. The magic in his body has also grown. Where it used to be a few thin strands, it can now be twisted into a small rope. Though even that description is wrong, because magic is not a tangible fluid. It is closer to an intangible, formless presence, beyond the magic stored in his body. The world itself is steeped in magical energy, sitting in every corner of it like ley lines. Casting a spell, the way it feels from the inside is reshaping that ambient magical energy through his own magic power, and the spells engraved on his will, manifesting an effect in a specific area. In a specific way, the size of the effect depends on the quality and quantity of his magic and on the spell itself. Mage hand is cheap. The cantrip costs little of his own magic. Casting range is about 10 meters around him. Past that, the spell drops. It is not really a combat spell, more an auxiliary tool. Opening a door from the inside without a key, lifting things at a distance. In a fight, he has already worked out a few uses for the roughly 10-pound force he can put on it, disrupting the enemy at the wrong moment with a shove to break there. He must guard while preparing an attack or before a clash, keeping his dagger held high and letting it drop with the sheer force of gravity. This trick only works if the target is completely oblivious. But simple disruption is far more effective than any blade, just a tiny, invisible hand grabbing an ankle, or a gentle tug at the perfect moment, can easily prove fatal if his timing is just right. Real combat isn't about trading blows. The outcome is decided in a split second. The Adventurers Guild of Grey Rock Town is a massive 3-story stone building, painted bright red right at the dead end of the main road, directly opposite the town square. A banner snapping in the wind over the porch depicts a sword, a shield, and a magic staff, while a constant stream of rowdy adventurers are always passing underneath it. The kid whose body he is currently occupying has lived in this town for over a year, but has never actually stepped inside. The most he ever did was steal a quick glance through the doorway as he walked by. This wasn't because of any official guild restriction either. It was pure inferiority. He felt only elite professionals belonged inside, and that wandering in would only invite awkward stares and questions. But now, under the gaze of 2 guards wearing elite light armor at the door, he walks right inside. The ground floor is a massive public hall, resembling a government service center. The place is absolutely packed with noise and rowdy adventurers. They cluster in small groups, chatting away. One veteran mentions that during his last fight with a null, his sword got completely dulled, and the payout didn't cover the repair. Another warns about goblin hordes. Scanning the busy hall, he spots half-orcs and gnomes, and dwarves all mingling together, though the vast majority of people are human. A large inquiry counter wraps around the back of the room in a semicircle, staffed by several receptionists, while the nearby walls are covered in posted quests. One request slip offers 3 silver coins in exchange for 5 slime cores. Another lists 50 copper coins for every stalk of intact blood tooth fern. Dazzled by all the options on the wall, he decides to go straight to the counter and simply ask. The The young woman working there has a clean face. An immaculate posture, she introduces herself as receptionist Petra, employee number E. 21,051. She is polite and well-trained, he tells her that he is a newcomer and asks how to accept tasks. She explains that he must first register as an individual adventurer, adding that the sign-up fee is 1 silver coin and asks if that is fine. He agrees and pulls a single silver coin from his pocket, silently thanking the lucky goblin ornament he sold just days ago. Honestly, if he hadn't, he would have been completely broke and embarrassed. She slides over the registration form and he quickly writes down his name, age, physical stats, and address. Along with his preferred weapons and skills, her hands move quickly under the counter and within seconds, she presents a sleek white badge, explaining that this is his official identification and proof of rank he will need to show it whenever he accepts or submits quests, and a replacement costs 1 silver coin. The badge itself is a diamond-shaped white metal piece with engraved plant patterns. The craftsmanship isn't bad. He asks Petra directly for any low-level combat quests involving goblins, specifically requesting smaller numbers. Goblins are the most common weak monsters, making them the perfect starting targets. Mental blocks are real, but since Gaus has already killed 1 goblin, he feels more confident facing them again. He hasn't fought other monsters yet, and simple names alone don't reveal how strong they are. The clerk thinks for a moment and points Gaus toward a section of the wall, mentioning some goblin requests. But the targets are mostly double-digit groups, simply because villagers won't pay a bounty for small groups if they aren't actively threatening anyone. Gaus thanks her and walks over to the board. The quests are mostly groups, like a bounty offering 10 silver coins. It describes a sheep pen at Stoneclaw Village being attacked by a pack of goblins. The request demands the entire local clan be wiped out, estimating 10 to 15 monsters. Adventurers must bring back complete left ears as proof. The time limit is 5 days. Another common bounty pays 50 copper coins per head to help guards clear out monsters along the highway between town and the Emerald Forest. It is long-term, requiring left ears. There are plenty of postings here. Every village and outpost in the surrounding area routes tasks through this guild, the only one in the region. Goblins attack villages and rob caravans constantly, yet there are no postings for single goblins, aside from long-term tasks with vague locations. Every job involves fighting a double-digit pack. He stands there with knitted brows when a quiet conversation drifts out of the next aisle. The specific word goblin immediately pulls Gaus's attention right over. He isn't eavesdropping on purpose. A voice notes White Birch Village is quite far, asking if 7 or 8 goblins is even doable. The second voice scoffs to relax, claiming trash like goblins will drop in one shot. The party is 1 boy and 2 girls, looking around 18 years old. The girl with long, curly brown hair wears form-fitting light armor with a bow on her back and a boot dagger. She is sharp-eyed, talking with hands on her hips, clearly the leader. The other girl is shorter and quieter, short black hair with straight bangs and a very evasive gaze. 2 daggers rest at her waist. The young man stands with crossed arms, leaning expressionless against a pillar, a long sword hanging at his hip. All 3 wear stylish leather and light armor in excellent condition. Their weapons are exceptionally bright, looking a little too clean, as if they haven't been used yet. Newcomers just like Gaus then. The archer girl holds a slip for 7 or 8 goblins, a manageable number. Joining a 4-person squad would be vastly safer, even with a split payout. As a mage, he needs a solid front line, and that is exactly what they have. Gaus walks up to greet them, introducing himself as a rookie adventurer looking for a party. His sudden voice from out of nowhere startles all 3 of them. The short-haired girl flinches, and the archer girl looks him up and down. She stares with suspicious scrutiny and does not give an immediate answer. From the clear hesitation in her face, she is leaning toward a no. He stands thin, wearing a washed-out linen tunic with drafty holes at the hem. His only gear is a battered dagger, making the term adventurer highly generous. He looks like a starving kid, taking a desperate gamble to survive. He is starving. His only real saving grace is his face, fairly clean and fine-boned. He has dark hair and striking green eyes that make people look twice, but she remains unconvinced. She's not about to recruit some useless eye candy to her squad and is rehearsing a refusal. Suddenly, the silence breaks. The swordsman leaning against the pillar speaks first. He points out they are also rookies, suggesting he find an experienced crew instead. The guy speaks in a pretty tired tone, though his advice is actually quite kind. Our main character politely replies that his goal is a goblin quest, but he cannot find solo work. Since no single-player options exist, he figured forming a temporary group was his best bet. Besides, he is not seeking veterans. They usually end up being lazy, low-tier careerists. He would rather avoid those bottom-tier types. Hearing this, the archer girl speaks up. She mentions needing to consult her companions first, and he tells her that is perfectly fine. He steps back to give them some space, never intending to force his way into their circle. If they say no, he leaves, simple as that, but then she stops him. It is like she remembered something crucial, asking if a dagger is his primary weapon. She asks about other specialties, but the question is clearly a setup to reject him. She is mentally preparing to say their team already has a dedicated dagger user. They cannot fit him in. He tells her directly that he indeed uses a dagger for close combat. But as for other skills, he was a hunter before, so he never gets lost in the wild. Plus, he just learned a spell, a magic spell. Instantly, all three turn to stare at him. The look in their eyes is pure shock, as if they just heard something impossible. The archer girl immediately asks if he is a mage, and he says he has indeed mastered a spell. He is not planning to hide his abilities. After all, trying to hold back now is just stupid. Since he wants to join them, being overly secretive would just waste valuable energy. Realizing words mean nothing on their own, he instantly activates his spell, Mage Hand. The air twists and an invisible phantom hand forms right where his magic concentrates. The unseen hand grabs his dagger, swiftly swinging it twice through the empty air. The archer girl stares at the floating weapon, her eyes instantly lighting up. She steps in close, eagerly asking what that spell is, and he calmly names it Mage Hand. He explains that it summons an invisible force, keeping his explanation quite brief and simple. He still does not know if they will accept him, so oversharing would be foolish. If he gets rejected after explaining everything, it would just be a total waste of breath. She nods excitedly, telling him she loves the idea, clearly harboring a deep passion for magic. Asking him to wait, she quickly drags her companions into a corner to discuss. They do not go very far, so their whispered conversation easily reaches his ears. One teammate questions teaming up with a stranger, while another points out his magical utility. They realize that having a mage in their temporary party makes everything so much safer. Since their first hunt involves 7 or 8 goblins, it pays to be extremely cautious. Their huddle is short and they return. The archer girl reveals they have no objections. She warmly welcomes him to the party, hoping they can work together successfully. Extending her hand, he shakes it politely and asks for their names. She introduces herself as Haley, explaining her specialized role with the bow and arrow. She acts as their primary range support, and after a brief pause, adds that she can cook. The short-haired girl chimes in next, introducing herself as Mia, their main dagger wielder. The swordsman introduces himself as Belle, who handles the heavy lifting with a longsword. Haley is already buzzing with excitement about their new mage, while Mia and Belle remain quiet. He finds a rather listless guy among them, though none seem like bad people. He asks if they are locals, and Haley confirms they are childhood friends from Bari. Even though he has spent over a year in Grey Rock, he has never seen them. On their very first day together, Haley decides to treat the entire team. She takes them to a nice tavern, and it turns out her friends are quite well off. They are not nobles, but they have never had to worry about basic needs. Feasting on roasted meat, ale, and venison sausage, he eats his absolute heart out. This is easily the most extravagant meal he has had since arriving here. Massive slabs of roasted meat sizzle in the tavern's secret specialty sauce. The very moment he takes a bite, rich juices explode across his tongue. The sliced venison sausage tastes incredibly rich, almost like high-grade beef. A smoky, fruity finish proves the local chefs really know their craft. This is a massive step up from the dry black bread he usually survives on. However, when the final bill arrives, it makes him quietly click his tongue. At 3 silver and 40 copper coins, this one dinner costs a small fortune. He wants to offer to split the bill, but quickly holds his tongue. After paying his registration fees, he literally does not have the money. Seeing the sheer embarrassment on his face, Belle lanes in with some advice. She tells him to relax since Haley's family is wealthy, and he simply nods. He quickly realizes the wealth gap in this magical world is absolutely massive. When the body's original owner left home, he had only 30 copper coins. Even after a whole year of grueling work, he only saved 3 silver. That is the price of just one dinner, making him shake his head. Talk about an underdog, but he is far from giving up. Once he makes a solid profit, he fully intends to return the favor. He touches his light coin pouch and quietly follows them out of the tavern. By the next morning, they are riding in the back of a merchant caravan. They lean against soft mailbags as the distant grassy hills slowly slide away. While Belle and Mia rest inside, Haley sits on the very edge of the wagon. She dangles her legs, happily watching the lush green wilderness roll past. The clear sky looks like bright sapphire as gentle sunlight filters through the clouds. Golden threads of light fall over the distant mountains in a soft haze. A crisp mountain breeze carries the scent of fresh grass and forest dew. After officially registering their party, the 4 of them spent the afternoon talking. They set off early the next morning toward the remote White Birch village. Since the journey takes 2 days, our main character suggested a clever shortcut. He proposed hitching a ride on a merchant caravan, and everyone loved it. They easily negotiated space in a wagon in exchange for providing armed security. This mutual trade keeps the nervous merchants very happy along the way. Soon, Haley gets bored of the scenery and turns to strike up a conversation. Their casual dinner yesterday actually helped them bond and understand each other. Now they are much more comfortable sharing details about their unique fighting styles. With a quiet laugh, she admits she never expected him to be a preparatory mage. He jokingly apologizes for ruining her grand expectations of high-class spellcasters. She giggles and explains that every other mage she has met was extremely wealthy. Just a bit different, she admits she actually wanted to become a mage as a kid but lacked the talent. Their lively chatter rolls on while the caravan carries them across grasslands, through woods, around mountains, and over rivers. Before finally dropping them at the agreed point, the trip was safe with no monster ambushes or surprises. He sighs in relief, though he also feels a strange pang of regret. They part with the caravan there, and the driver tells them White Birch Village is about an hour's walk down the country road. Follow it to the end, then turn left at the fork. The second village in is White Birch. Haley thanks the manager, who waves them off, warning that goblins are small monsters, but never to let their guard down. They watch the caravan dwindle and vanish, leaving the surroundings feeling suddenly empty. They push on without resting, reaching the village just as the last of the sunlight dies. On either side of the dirt road are deep trees, and the dusk wind blows cold past their necks. Haley, who had been excited about this job all day, has gone quiet. The 4 of them proceed carefully. At the fork in the road, a crooked wooden sign reads White Birch Village. Before they even step inside, they hear a commotion from the central square, and underneath the commotion is the sound of crying. His heart sinks. Whatever happened in there is connected to their mission, and honestly, that's never a good sign. Inside the village, a bonfire throws dim light over the square. Men stand with their arms raised, yelling that the village must gather its forces immediately to rescue Jenny and Aisha. Other men look hesitant, muttering that it is already dark, that they should prepare weapons tomorrow, only for the first group to cut them off. Tomorrow will be too late. Those filthy, green-skinned bastards will not give the village time to prepare. Women sit on the ground, wailing about their children, faces wrecked with grief. Haley calls out across the noise, asking if this is White Birch Village, and telling them they are adventurers who accepted the commission, asking for the village chief to explain the situation. The shouting drops away. Under wary stares, an old man leaning on a walking stick steps out of the crowd and introduces himself as the village chief of White Birch Village. He welcomes them and apologizes for the lack of hospitality, saying the village is in a dire situation. Haley tells him it is all right, asking him to give them the specifics since they are here for the commission. She produces the accepted commission document to prove who they are. The chief sighs in relief and starts the story. 2 of the village women have been carried off by a goblin tribe. The tribe has been active in the surrounding jungle for several months but never attacked people before. The worst they did was occasionally steal a sheep, a chicken, or a duck to reduce losses. The villagers pooled their money and posted a bounty in Grey Rock Town. The goblins then went quiet for 2 days. No sightings, no losses, and the villagers relaxed a little, expecting adventurers any day now to come clear out the nest. They let their guard slip. Today, as day was sliding into night, the village suffered its first real tragedy. 2 women were snatched in one go. It is fully dark now. And moving is difficult. Outside of the immediate family of the 2 victims, the rest of the villagers do not want to enter the dense forest in the dark to fight. Goblins' people are in the end self-interested, so in the square the village is completely split, with the rational side warning that night combat is suicide. They argue there is no guarantee of success, while frantic families insist tomorrow is too late. The girls were taken recently, meaning there is still a chance to save them. Goblins are only child-sized, so banding together should be enough to save them. But both sides make sense, leaving the torn chief utterly unable to make a decision. Suddenly, the 4 rookies walk in, and he immediately pins all his hopes on them. Aside from the black-haired young man, the squad is heavily equipped in professional gear. Their apparent combat power is something these desperate, simple peasants completely lack. As all eyes lock onto them, Haley offers a polite bow and requests a moment. She quickly pulls her team aside, leaving the crowded square in sudden, tense silence. An anxious silence pulses. Can you imagine the pressure on these young rookies? This brand new, completely untested team is suddenly carrying the hopes of an entire village. Watching the quiet, desperate crowd, the black-haired protagonist feels a massive weight on his shoulders. True adventure is unpredictable. He originally expected a highly straightforward goblin-clearing run. Just arrive, rest, gather intel, and map out an orderly strategy. They would slay the goblins and wrap things up, but their plan hits an immediate roadblock. Belle asks if they are moving tonight, since their original agreement was to wait. They plan to stay overnight and operate tomorrow, but this sudden crisis ruins everything. Haley sighs, noting that 2 villagers were captured. If they do not act now, it is over. Yet venturing out into the pitch-black woods raises the danger level enormously. Nervously, her fingers twist through her hair as the young protagonist points out they lack intel. Mia quickly agrees that it is incredibly risky, especially since they are all beginners. None of them are veterans, and dark-dwelling monsters hold a massive vision advantage. Reason tells them to wait for sunrise, scout the goblin fortress, and then strike. But doing that guarantees the 2 captive women will face unspeakable, permanent harm. After all, they took this goblin extermination request to actually protect people. Inside, the black-haired youth sighs at this impossible dilemma. Haley takes a deep breath. Sweating slightly, she suggests a team vote that everyone must absolutely respect. She counts down 3, 2, 1, and they all speak their minds simultaneously. He is just half a beat behind the girls, landing on the exact same word, go. His modern world moral compass simply won't let him be cold-blooded, and Haley sighs in relief. Seeing everyone choose to go, the protagonist adds they must bring experienced villagers. They need forest guides and plenty of reliable lighting to navigate the dark. Above all, they must prioritize their own survival while attempting this dangerous rescue. His magical map prevents him from getting lost, but he knows nothing of these woods. He needs locals familiar with the unexplored territory to minimize their overall risk. The others quickly agree, and when they inform the crowd, the villagers erupt in gratitude. They desperately beg them to save Jenny and Aisha as family members step forward. 4 frantic men immediately volunteer, having been the loudest voices demanding action. They were ready to charge the goblin nest alone if help had not arrived. Wasting no time, the men grab their pitchforks and torches, and the party departs. Knowing the general location, 2 of the volunteer guides lead the way up front. They march with torches in one hand and sharp pitchforks in the other. These grim-faced men are the desperate fathers of Jenny and Aisha, leading with heavy hearts. Behind them, the 4 adventurers quietly coordinate their strategy as Haley lays it out. They hold the front line, engaging head-on while Haley rains down arrows from the flank. Meanwhile, he pins the goblins with magic to create openings for the swords, ready to switch to his dagger if the spacing gets too tight. Belle and Mia agree to this plan, even though it puts them in the line of fire. He agrees too, knowing they spent all of yesterday practicing. But training is one thing, actually facing bloodthirsty monsters in the dark is another. Still, his 3 companions are surprisingly capable, and each one of them has mastered a professional level skill that they can use with ease. Mia possesses thrust, a deadly forward lunge with her twin blades that lets her chain strikes together seamlessly. Belle relies on cleave, which might sound simple, but upon activation, it floods his sword with massive power, making every single slash devastating. Haley holds the precision skill, instantly sharpening her vision and grip. She never misses a shot at mid or close range, toss in his own mage hand. To back them up, and this rookie crew looks pretty formidable on paper. In fact, they might even outclass several veteran squads, which is exactly why he agreed to join this mission. 7 or 8 goblins should be an easy fight. For a team where everyone holds an active skill, they just need to strike first and take down one target apiece. From there, it becomes a series of easy one-on-one duels. The 2 older villagers ask them to hold the line and keep the beasts occupied once they finish off their own targets. They promise to circle back and assist. The crew tells them not to worry. Each can handle their own. Soon they reach the cave entrance and things get real. It spans about 2 meters wide, leading down into a pitch-black abyss. The guides confirm this is the den. Moss slicks the rocks in a foul. Bitter odor drifts from the mouth. Halting at the edge, he gestures silently. To the team, he intends to explain his plan to use mage hand to scout 10 meters deep into the cavern, but then, a sudden high-pitched screech pierces the air, catching him completely off guard. He whips his head toward the sound, spots the danger, and curses silently. A green-skinned scout with pointed ears is scrambling out of the nearby brush. It shrieks out a warning, a sentry. His heart begins to race. Time completely freezes. His thoughts turn razor-sharp, like stepping into bullet time. He tightens his grip, slips to the side, and slashes toward the beast's throat. The goblin scout tries to dodge on pure instinct, but a silent, unseen pressure suddenly strikes from behind. Mage hand, the spectral force delivers a sharp shove, and while it is not powerful, it is just enough to throw the creature completely off balance. His steel blade cuts a perfect arc, slicing deep into the tough green skin. Crimson fluid sprays everywhere. In one swift, fluid motion, his physical strike and well-timed magic have completely torn open the goblin's throat. The loud screech dies down into a wet rattle. His system log updates, recording his second official kill. The limp body falls, head barely hanging on. Its pale yellow eyes stare blankly up at him, as if memorizing the human who ended its life. Get ready to fight, he tells the group. They are stunned by his speed. But there is absolutely no time to hesitate. The alarm has already been sounded. Fierce, angry roars begin echoing from the deep shadows of the cavern. Like enraged monkeys, as goblins swarm out of their nest, footsteps multiply in the flickering firelight. Pairs of glowing red eyes start flicking out into view. 1 pair, 2, 8, 12, 13 pairs. He has been counting silently, and the math is wrong. He shouts to the others that the numbers are wrong. There are too many of them. The intelligence was flawed. Watch out. A dozen or more pairs of red eyes line up against them, and it feels as if the whole cave is crawling toward them at once. His heart pounds, his hand clamps on dagger handle, and he has already learned his second valuable lesson out. Here, never blindly trust mission intelligence. 18, he lands on the number. And he keeps landing on it because the intel was 7 or 8, and the count is 18, and there is no time to ask the Adventurers Guild what went wrong in their paperwork. The 4 village fathers can each pin 1 goblin if they are lucky, and that leaves 14, meaning every one of them takes at least 3 at the same time. On paper, that sounds workable in the dark, with a ring of hideous green faces hissing through brownish-yellow teeth. The raw animal weight of it presses indifferently than a single goblin ever did. 1 goblin you fight, a pack you survive. The goblins erupt from the cave, and the clearing splits into pockets, everyone swarmed by their own private nightmare. A spear goblin comes straight at him, its murky eyes locked on his jaw and its lips trembling with greed, drool stringing off the brownish-yellow teeth. It throws its shoulder into a stone spear wrapped in tough vines and drives it up at his throat from below, and his vision slows again, like a switch flipping. Not just the spear in front of him, a knife goblin sneaking up behind him, a third one circling on the side. He is almost completely ringed by green-skinned runts. In the span of one breath, the accelerated thinking gives him the analysis, but his legs are still ordinary human stats. He kicks hard off the soil and shoves himself sideways into the only open angle, and the spear and the dagger both slice empty air where his body had been. Sweat starts beating along his back. His intelligence is the only outstanding stat he has, and the rest of him is a normal, healthy adult male, which means his brain reacts in time, but his body answers half a beat late. He has to live in the gap, the 3 of them close back in before he can press the advantage. He wants to take 1 down in the same clean slash he used on the scout, but reality keeps him skating. Dodging, parrying. Actually, there is no parrying, just frantic movement. goblins are. Small people forget that they are also muscular, agile, and they pack more strength than the size suggests. He will not say it out loud, but the head-on threat of these three is on a different planet from the one he ambushed at the cave mouth. Somewhere to his left, a man screams. He glances over while his feet keep moving. The first casualty of the night is one of the village fathers, kneeling in the dirt with a long spear punched clean through his gut, blood sheeting out of him into a pool that grows while he watches. A goblin pounces and starts working the wound with a knife like a hyena nuzzling open ribs. Its face wears the kind of indescribable joyful smile a torturer wears when nobody is looking. The torch in the father's hand has fallen into his own blood, and it is still burning, throwing the demonic shadows of deformed bodies up. Blood still burns. Demonic shadows of mangled bodies dance against the wall. Across the trees, the whole scene looks far too much like a twisted ritual to be anything else. His mouth goes dry, his eyelids twitching. He has never had the cold shadow of death loom this close, and the monster silhouettes make his scalp crawl. He cannot afford to be terrified right now, or he will be the next. Body on the ground, gritting his teeth, the panicked noise inside his head completely drops away, replaced by a strange, icy quiet. The brutal scene before his eyes has forged him into someone much steadier. Frankly, the threat of dying right here has forced his inner coward to one side, leaving only the fierce desire to survive. Fully in control, a clean bowstring suddenly snaps from somewhere behind the trees. Dark arrow whistles right past his ear and tears through the goblin, pinning the dying father goblin, locking it right where it stood. Haley breathes heavily, chest heaving and eyes blazing. That shot was not actually necessary for the battle, but he believes she needed to take that shot for her own sanity. A second goblin exploits her open stance to close in with a short blade raised at her neck. He sees it happening in that strangely slowed down state he just entered. He takes in all the pieces at a glance and casts Mage Hand. The invisible force condenses right beside her, slamming the goblin's wrist sideways. 10 pounds of invisible pressure shoves the slash off course. The blade clangs against the light armor, protecting her back instead of slicing her skin. The heavy impact rattles her ribs. As a thin line of blood traces down her lip from a bitten cheek, she staggers, metallic taste filling her mouth, then quickly recovers, drawing the sharp dagger from her boot to rip open the staggered goblin from chest to stomach in one savage slash. Its intestines spill as it collapses, desperately trying to deny what just happened. She looks across the bloody clearing at him with the kind of look you only give the person who just kept you alive. She quietly says, "Thank you," but he lacks the breath to reply. He simply nods, whatever primal hatred these green-skinned creatures harbor for mages, his use of magic has definitely triggered them. Suddenly, a massive target is painted right on his back, specifically with 6 or 7 rushing him. Luckily, Haley notches another arrow without being embraces her bow with trembling arms. Another precision shot sings out, and a bloody hole punches right through the chest of a goblin that was turning toward him. The creature sways, with far more air escaping its lungs than entering. He quickly covers the distance while it is still standing, slipping behind to take its head off easily. 2 kills. The compendium ticks the running total in his mind. Total kills 3. He looks at Haley and she looks back. They do not need to speak. The battlefield is in complete chaos. Mia, Belle, and the 3 surviving villagers are locked in their own desperate struggles. The only way they survive is if they clean up their quadrant first. He shouts across to her not to keep burning skills. Every precision shot drains a massive chunk of her stamina, and they are nowhere near the end. Now that his panic has cleared, he can clearly see his own advantage. As a human, even with strength 5 and constitution 5 and average physical stats across the board, he still outclasses any individual goblin on raw stamina and explosive power. The main reason a normal fighter dies to 2 goblins at once is not strength, it is the inability to track multiple angles of attack at once, but his intelligence score of 7 gives him exactly that: faster thoughts, better pathing, and a mage hand he can place wherever he needs. He can dance. The mage hand shoots out again as Haley's arrows keep coming. Her shaft takes a goblin in the shoulder, pinning another right through the waist. He reads the wounds, slipping past a 3rd goblin's swing to reach the injured beast. It raises a crude wooden club, desperate for a shield of cracked timber to save it, but he moves straight through. Striking from behind, a beheading slash cuts off its terrified shriek. Total Kills 4. Without pausing, he targets the other pinned beast 2 steps away and drives his dagger deep into its open side, a brutal twist tearing through. Something vital. Total kills 5. The weapon feels completely different in his hand. A faint white shimmer coats the edge as the blade bites goblin flesh. With every strike, something powerful surges from him, an inexplicable, unreal weight behind each cut. That has to be the trick, he realizes as glowing text writes itself across his vision. The system informs him that he has earned the title of Goblin Hunter, which will upgrade as his tally grows. The active effect is Nemesis, against goblins and their evolved kin. He deals an additional 10% damage, so that explains the strange white shimmer. Of course it does. The cold fear clawing at his chest finally washes away. He is completely drenched in blood from neck to knees. Breath rasps in his throat. His stamina is dropping faster than he likes. Yet his eyes burn with far more focus than 5 minutes ago. He stares at the 4 goblins circling him, his blue eyes reflecting the flickering firelight from the torch in the dirt. It must rattle their nerves because they begin to tremble. Goblins are cruel only when winning, and cowards when losing. That is textbook knowledge. The cruel drive sent them swarming from the cave. The cowardly side is finally waking up, now that their pack is falling apart in the mud around him at insane speed. Plus, they can feel the heavy weight of Nemesis. Who is the prey now? He grabs a fallen goblin's short blade from the dirt, knowing that even though it is completely rusted and unmaintained, it offers far better reach than his dagger. Haley's arrow strikes another through the lower leg, pinning its foot to the ground. He launches forward. Off the blood-soaked soil, the remaining 3 goblins freeze in place. His blade sweeps down diagonally. The edge bites and accelerates the moment. It touches flesh, Nemesis activating to sever the goblin's neck and shoulder in one clean cut. Blood spatters across his face. Total kills 6. Letting out a heavy grunt, he keeps the blade moving. The next goblin blocks with a club, but he pours raw power into his strike, sending the wood spinning away. Planting his feet, he delivers a horizontal cut, slicing the beast clean in half. Total kills 7. Haley has scrambled up onto a sturdy tree branch, staring down at him with her mouth hanging open. What on earth is up with this guy? Her expression is absolute bewilderment. He is running incredibly hot now, his pulse throbbing wildly in his head. His limbs are trembling from too many explosive movements in a row, yet his focus is sharper than ever. He swallows blood-flavored spit and faces the last 2 goblins stand trembling. Their courage is gone, and their hands shake on their weapons. Suddenly, an invisible hand snaps down from the air with 10 pounds of unseen force. It rips the weapon right out of one goblin's grip, then instantly targets the other. It happens in an instant. They are disarmed before they can even react. They stand completely defenseless before him, stripped of their last shred of resistance. He will not waste an opening like this. He closes the gap, gripping his rusty blade. Putting his hips into the swing, he slices both of them in half as they turn to flee. A clean cut, that makes 8 kills. Suddenly, one goblin breaks for the trees. Grinding his heel through a slick of foul intestines on the dirt, he lunges after it. 3 hard strides and his blade sinks deep into its soft, tofu-like abdomen. He twists his wrist violently, shredding the creature's internal organs with a single turn. The beast lets out one last unwilling shriek into the dark woods before collapsing. He pulls his blade free. Suddenly, his legs buckle, sending him to one knee. Hand braced on the dirt, his lungs roar. The magic drained far too much stamina. Now that the immediate danger has passed, his body is demanding payment for the strain. 9 kills total. His cheap cloth armor now hangs shredded across his bloody chest. A dozen small cuts cover his skin, left by weapons he never even felt. His heavy breathing echoes through the woods as his limbs shake with exhaustion. He mutters a quiet complaint about the sting, but quickly pushes it aside. Resting now means someone else dies, and that is a luxury he cannot afford. He surpassed his limits. Honestly, he performed far better than anyone expected. After that initial scout, he managed to slay 7 more goblins in a row. That is an impossible feat for a freshly awakened mage. Luckily, Haley helped. Her arrows did half the work, keeping them wounded and off balance. Without her constant pressure, the scales would have tipped against him fast. But the rest was pure willpower, the raw drive to keep fighting through the pain. Even when his body begged him to stop, the goblins lost their resolve first. He kept fighting. That relentless grit decided life and death tonight. High up in the branches, Haley finally lowers her heavy wooden bow. Her aching arms hang limp from executing so many rapid draws. Suddenly, a young man's desperate scream rips across the bloody clearing. 9 goblins remain active. Mia, Belle, and the 3 villagers are still fighting. But Belle just let out a gut-wrenching sound that bodes terribly for everyone. Belle collapses. His right Achilles tendon is a completely torn, bloody mess. Flesh is torn down to the white bone. He wails through clenched teeth. He swings his longsword in wide, desperate arcs from the dirty ground. 4 dead goblins surround him, but his blind swings are no longer hitting. Blindsided by agony, he wastes his remaining energy hacking at empty air. Nearby, Mia is panting heavily. She wields dual blades, trying to fight her way over. She needs to reach him before 2 goblins finish him, but a massive threat blocks her path. Even the breathing mage freezes. A hulking hobgoblin, a full head taller than the rest, looms. It is massive, broad shoulders, thick bones, and a terrifyingly vicious face. Massive fangs jut past its upper lip. The beast stands nearly 1.5 meters tall. It brandishes a crudely crafted, heavy black iron machete. Despite the poor metalwork, the wide blade is deadly, and rough armor shields its chest. It wears mismatched leather armor. If normal goblins are small fry, this is the big boss. An elite captain leading the pack. It swings hard at Mia, its heavy machete whistling through the air. On pure instinct, she crosses her dual blades right in front of her face to block the strike. The heavy blow hits her parry, sparks fly, and the sheer weight launches her backward. She crashes backward onto the dirt. He curses silently under his breath at their terrible luck. Standard goblins, that was the request, but this is different. Guild records say elite monsters can breed in deep nests. Hobgoblins or shamans, terrifying but extremely rare, this brute was hiding. It was either waiting inside the cave, or the noise finally dragged it out. He never sensed its presence until now. It is not a fully evolved hobgoblin just yet. But even a half-evolved monster is a massive threat to rookies like them. Any high-rank hunter would easily shrug this creature off as a minor nuisance. To low-rank rookies without professional experience, this is a death sentence. A total party wipe standing on 2 legs, game over for them. That explains why the smaller goblins did not run. They have a captain leading them. With a leader on the field, their morale stays strong when they should have fled. 3 beasts have the villagers pinned. 2 more circle Belle like patient snakes, just waiting to strike, ready to deliver the final killing blow. Meanwhile, the mutant locks onto Mia, the only teammate still standing on her own feet. The absolute gap in their raw power is just terrifying to watch. The only reason she is still breathing is because the beast wants her alive. It wants to capture her, not kill her. He reads the battlefield and forces himself up. Instantly, severe dizziness hits him like a freight train, and the trees begin to spin. They say if you stop halfway during a long sprint, you will never get back up. The moment you pause, the physical toll hits you twice as hard. What he just pushed his body through was far worse than any sprint. Now, the bill is due. His legs feel like lead, solid lead. This has a tax. While the mind runs at lightning speed, the physical body simply cannot keep pace. All the pain and exhaustion he ignored during the clash suddenly slams into him. Moving even an inch feels like operating someone else's broken limbs. He gasps for air. Dragging herself up from the dirt, Mia looks over and sees him shaking. The very last shred of hope drains from her pale face. She has reached her absolute limit. Freezing magic has left her muscles completely locked. But the cruel mutant does not give her even a second to recover. It lunges forward with fast, savage swings, rattling the weapons in her trembling hands. He gasps for air. They are all standing on a cliff edge. There is only one narrow path left, one way to avoid falling to their doom. He glances up at Haley perched on the tree branch, completely exhausted, and points. He shouts up to her, do the same as before, and make him a window. His eyes can barely stay open, but his focus must remain razor sharp. Hearing his plea, she prepares to shoot without a single word of complaint. She has no idea how one tiny opening will save them now, but she trusts him. His insane, heroic combat display earlier earned a level of faith she cannot deny. She takes a slow, steady breath, brushing sweat-soaked hair right out of her eyes. With a shaking hand, she slowly draws another heavy arrow from her quiver. Out of her quiver, she rests the arrow on the string without drawing, knowing she has. One shot left. Gaus bends down to pick up a dagger, since his current blade is far too heavy for what little strength he has left. This dagger will do, he drags his heavy, stone-like legs toward Belle. Step by painful step, he slowly stumbles. The hobgoblin notices his unsteady approach, and a flicker of deep confusion crosses its face. It is not stupid, possessing the reasoning of a small child, but it simply cannot grasp what threat a barely standing human could possibly pose by. Limping toward its two subordinates, it completely dismisses him as a non-factor and turns back to Mia. She is still resisting, making the creature furious as it bears its teeth, pupils narrowing. Meanwhile, Gaus staggers over to Belle, who has gone bone white from massive blood loss, his sword still wobble in front of him by pure reflex. The two goblins do not advance, turning their heads in unison to look at this new figure approaching them. Gaus is covered head to toe in sticky, reeking blood that is already drying into scabs. He completely ignores the foul stench. By the time he reaches them, the short walk has bought him a tiny bit of strength, which is all he has. He lifts his head, locking eyes with them. The goblins sniff the air, but only when he is close enough to touch do they catch the scent. The stench of their slaughtered kin stains him. Suddenly, an invisible pressure lifts off him, as if the furious spirits of 9 dead monsters are still clinging to his back, warning these remaining two of their impending doom. Whatever his nemesis title is doing on a passive level, it allows him to hold ordinary goblins under a natural, overwhelming pressure. Similar to a cat cornering a mouse, gathering every shred of remaining strength, he slashes his dagger at one of them. It is not enough, even with the pressure on them. His strike has less than a third of its usual force. The goblin stumbles back 2 paces, easily dodging the blade. Instantly, the other goblin's eyes shift as the mental pressure from his arrival cracks. The moment Gaus missed his strike, the monster's cunning returns. It sees he is finished, but then a bowstring snaps. Somewhere behind him, a black streak gleaming in the silver moonlight tears through 20 meters of empty air. It buries itself precisely into the goblin's chest that had just dodged Gaus. Haley forced her precision skill one last time. Her right arm hangs completely limp and flushed at her side. After releasing the shot, she shouts across the clearing that the rest is up to him. This arrow is his chance. Gripping the dagger with both hands, he drives forward, ignoring the agonizing screams in his feet. Right now, his body's momentum is far more useful than raw muscle. The dagger sinks deep into the open arrow wound, and he keeps pushing the wailing goblin backward for several meters. By the blade alone, the beast is hit by an irresistible force, its life pouring out as its vision rapidly hazes over. A mouthful of blood sprays onto Gaus's chest, and the dim light in the goblin's eyes fades. Suddenly, system text flashes across his vision, stating that his total monster kills have reached 10. The next objective requires 50 kills. A notification announces a reward, granting him a first circle mage skill called Magic Missile. His constitution stat immediately increases by 1 point, and then the system displays his new stat at 6 before he can even process the system alert. Fresh power floods his body, untying the knot in his muscles. He feels a sensation like warm rain. His breathing becomes deep and steady. His organs are strengthening at a rate he can actually feel. The shaking in his calves stops within seconds. Except for his existing external cuts, his entire body has been totally overhauled. A new spell rests in his mind like a chord that was always there, only now he finally knows its name. So this is how the adventurer's handbook works. Clear a stage, get a reward. Useful to know. The other goblin, the one that finally worked up the courage to attack him, swings a club right at his face. He simply rolls his shoulders, effortlessly sliding underneath the blow. The brand new constitution point has closed the gap between his mind and his physical body, and a single ordinary goblin is suddenly nothing. His dagger finds its waist, twisting, shredding, and pulling free. Total kills 11. Up in the tree, Haley's mouth drops. 5 seconds ago, he was a walking corpse on the verge of collapsing. Now, he moves like he did during the first 10 minutes of the battle. She cannot fathom what changed, but the long-lost hope begins to spark right back in her eyes. If he is back, then maybe a roar rips through the clearing. The massive hobgoblin's machete swings down with sudden crushing weight. Mia hears a crisp crack from her own arm, the sound of bone snapping, and all the strength in her hands instantly vanishes. The monster's next blow launches her backward. She slams hard into a tree, spitting up blood before bouncing off the trunk and falling in a crumpled heap on the dirt. The hobgoblin licks its lips, smelling human blood, sends a feverish rush through its skin. It glares over at Mia's broken, still figure, and slowly steps toward her. 1, 2, a whistle behind it, a sharp sonic snap. Feeling a biting pain in its back, his dagger has just slipped through a gap in the leather armor around its waist, burying itself deep. The sharp pain blooms across its lower abdomen. Instantly, it lets out 3 short roars and whips around, swollen red eyes glaring madly. At him, he has already backed off to put safe distance between them, having just thrown the weapon. He has no intention of being there when the beast reaches him. It is now past any rational thought. It does not stop to question why a human who is barely standing is suddenly perfectly fine. It only wants to tear him apart, rip his intestines out, and gouge out his heart. It wants to devour his flesh until absolutely nothing is left, easing the pain currently racking its body by making someone pay. Its muscles begin to bulge across its frame, its skin tone deepening to a feverish crimson. Knotted muscle bunches up under thickening hide as its rage ignites a primal layer beneath its hobgoblin form. It has become a bloodlust-soaked beast, visibly larger than it was a mere breath ago. He, on the other hand, has gone completely calm. A whole night of intense fighting has hammered every piece of his mind into one single, razor-sharp focus in this moment. Some might call this state flow, but he has no energy to label it anything. The giant stomps, shaking the ground. Its massive muscles detonate, and it charges at him like a tank, splitting the air in front of it. Along the clearing edge, Haley holds her breath. Mia and Belle, pinned to dirt, they barely lift their heads to watch. Can he survive? That is the ultimate question on their faces, but he cannot hear a thing. There is only the massive threat right in front of him. One hand rests flat against his chest, the determination in his eyes hardening to the point of becoming almost physical. An intelligence score of 7 is not just slightly above 5, it is potentially double or triple the ceiling, and he has not been tapping into it. A few days of basic cantrip practice was never going to draw out its surging straight from the very bottom of his soul right up to the surface, until now. Charging across the dirt, the spirit inside his chest finally cracks, breaking the invisible barrier, and with that, a massive spiritual force explodes directly into his mind, and his hair lifts wildly in a wind that is not there. The first circle spell, magic missile, newly carved into his very soul, awakens all at once. Casting is all about focus, stretching his spirit to its absolute limit. Suddenly, the world goes quiet. The hobgoblin closes in. 5 meters left. Flies from its fangs with every stride. A blue light begins to glow inside his palm. Dim at first, but it quickly expands, devouring the darkness of the woods with its brilliant glare. When the orb finally takes shape in his hand, he actually feels its physical weight pressing against his wrist. The beast is 1 second from tearing him apart, but 1 second is an eternity. He hurls the orb, which stretches into a blinding beam of light, lancing through the night sky. It slams directly into the monster's stomach with the devastating force of a speeding train. The creature flies backward, completely helpless, as a blue halo expands rapidly inside its chest, tearing through skin, through flesh, and straight through bone all at the same time. The creature's body looks fragile against this sudden surge of raw mana. Ripping like wet paper laid over the edge of a pot, the blue energy punches straight through and detonates violently against the earth behind it. The entire forest blazes with brilliant blue flames mixed with shredded red flesh blooming in the deep dark like fireworks. The light fades, leaving a massive, fist-sized hole right through the monster's midsection. Its heavy body crashes into the dirt, machete still frozen in its dead grip, as dust billows around the corpse. It lies perfectly still. The young mage hasn't moved an inch either. Frozen mid-cast with his hand still outstretched toward the smoking clearing. Slowly his attention turns to the 3 remaining goblins, who were just fighting the village elders. That sudden violent surge of magical energy pulled their gaze. They watched their captain die by a single spell. Now they realize the boy staring at them is the source of that power. Their cowardly bodies begin shaking uncontrollably. Even basic goblins have very little intelligence, but they certainly have enough to know they are staring right at death, so without a moment of hesitation, they discard their rusty weapons, abandon their fallen allies littering the bloody ground, and flee into the shadows, tearing off their armor to run faster. They prove exactly what cowards they are. Finally, it is over. He surveys the silent battlefield and lets out a long, heavy sigh. He has absolutely no intention of chasing those survivors. Scattered goblins separated from their pack do not survive long in the wild unless they somehow manage to find another tribe willing to take them in. And these cowards certainly won't find shelter tonight. Besides, his mana is completely dry, while his utility cantrip was incredibly cheap to cast, even with his stamina pushed past the limit. Earlier, he still kept a surprisingly decent reserve of power ready for that magic missile. The circle spell completely drained him in a single shot. This sudden emptiness is purely agonizing. His head throbs violently, his spirit completely overextended from preparing that single strike, and the only possible reason he is still standing there, completely frozen, is that he has absolutely no physical energy left to budge, strike a cool pose, not exactly planned. Thankfully, that fading magical aura was menacing enough to terrify those running pests. Because considering the terrible, exhausted state everyone is in right now, 3 more goblins would have spelled disaster. Just then, one of the older villagers calls out to him. Villagers ask if the young adventurer is all right, though they have taken some heavy hits themselves. They are still standing, though. Usually, ordinary goblins stand no real chance against healthy humans. At least not in a fair fight, but tonight was never fair, and the pitch-black darkness gave the beasts every possible advantage, seeing the young man standing completely frozen in place. Staring blankly into the forest, they approach him with caution. It is finally sinking in that this quiet, dusty young man at the back of the squad is their real leader. That blazing meteor of magic he used to obliterate the goblin captain is going to be the talk of the entire town for years to come. He quietly tells them the fight is done, urging them to head inside the cave to find the captured women. He asks them to send a runner straight back to the village for emergency help. His companions are desperately hurting. Everyone needs medical treatment, and fast. He turns to look at his battered crew. This whole mission has taken a devastating toll. Bell lies there with a shattered leg. There is no telling if he will ever walk normally again, the moment the magic faded. Bell's adrenaline collapsed and he blacked out on the dirt. Mia's condition is even worse. She is paralyzed on the ground, coughing up dark blood and bits of torn tissue. And honestly, despite their victory, both of them are on the verge of death. While Haley and the young man are technically better off, neither has the strength to walk. The elder who took the very first blow has been completely still for too long. He did not make it. Before long, flickering torches approach from the direction of the village. A rooster crows at dawn in White Birch Village, following a long, sleepless night. The entire settlement is blanketed in a heavy, quiet grief, but there is some comfort. Jenny and Aisha were dragged from the cave alive. They are bruised and covered in filth. But they survived. The young leader has the decency not to pry into the horrors. They must have suffered inside that dark hole. Some things are better left unsaid. The tragic part is that one of the village men never returned. It was Aisha's own brother. Initially, the crowd waiting in the town square felt a wave of bitter anger. One of their own had perished, even though they hired professionals to protect everyone. They hired this squad specifically to keep everyone safe. But get this, that resentment instantly vanishes once they actually see the cavern entrance. The ground is drenched in dark crimson. The heavy smell of copper and spilled guts hangs thick. Over the valley, severed green limbs, hands, and torn flesh are scattered everywhere. A gruesome, unspeakable display of carnage that nobody would ever want to describe. Several weak-stomached villagers drop to their knees, vomiting. Seeing Belle and Mia's horrific injuries, combined with the survivors' accounts of the massive army, puts an end to all complaints. By noon, the narrative completely shifts. The group is hailed as the heroic saviors of White Birch Village. They are given rooms in the grandest stone estate. Unfortunately, there is no real doctor around. Only an amateur herbalist sits by Belle and Mia, applying basic bandages. It is barely enough, and the only thing preventing the wounded fighters from slipping away entirely is a single crimson pill Haley retrieved from her pouch. This pill temporarily boosts the patient's remaining life force to stabilize severe trauma. But there is a catch. Repeating the dose too soon would be lethal. The companions are barely hanging on. They are out of immediate danger, but not safe. They need actual medical treatment. As the morning sun rises and the fog clears, the young adventurer stands at the outpost limits to bid Haley a quiet farewell. Inside the cart, Belle and Mia rest on padding as Haley rushes around with feverful cloths for their foreheads. She decides against taking them back to Gray Rock Town. The place is big for the frontier, but its medical services are nothing compared to a real city. Bari, their hometown, is the closest Forest City in the opposite direction. There, they can finally get real treatment. The driver up front yells that it is time to leave. He asks Haley if she wants him to tag along. She tells him not to worry since once they reach the main highway, traffic picks up and the road is totally safe. Her face is fully drained of the brightness from 2 days ago. She has to force A weak smile onto her lips, she tells him that he still has the quest closeout to wrap up here. She is leaving the remaining tasks in his hands. She blinks at him with that quiet pause people make when they want to ask a question but save it for later. Her opinion of him has completely changed. At first, she sized him up as a weak, low-level adventurer she did not want on her team. After their afternoon of training, she saw him as a provisional mage who happened to know just one spell, but lacked the background to go anywhere. But after last night, she does not even know what to think. With her limited experience, she can tell he does not fit any normal category. She invites him to visit her in Bari. At the Golden Beak Merchant Guild on the west side of town, Belle and Mia will be there to host him and treat him well. He promises that if there is a chance, he will. Truthfully, for the near future, he plans to stay around Grey Rock Town. She does not need to know that yet. She tells him that next time they meet, he will be someone very formidable. She waves. The cart rolls away. He watches her chestnut hair vanish. Just like that, they are gone. Their team formed and broke in 3 days. Whether they will ever meet again is anyone's guess. This harsh world is nothing like his old home. Without technology or the internet, connections here are incredibly fragile, and saying goodbye usually means forever. The cool morning breeze brushes his hair as he turns back toward the village. He did not share a deep bond with those 3 girls. Still, they were worth knowing. If they only had more time. A slight ache lingers inside him. He decides to stay in the village just one more day, which the locals celebrate like a holiday. Simple commoners in this world hold a deep reverence for mages. Normal professions use visible power. Anyone can see a heavy sword slash, but magic is completely invisible. People naturally fear what they cannot see, making magic mysterious and terrifying. He did not stay just to enjoy their admiring looks. Though he wanted his body to recover fully and to tidy up the battlefield. To submit the quest, he needs to harvest the goblin left ears, obtain the village chief's stamp on his documents, and collect any remaining loose weapons. He walks back alone to the clearing right in front of the cave. The blood has dried. After a night under the sun, the stench is 10 times worse than before. He pushes through the foul smell, fighting back nausea as he searches the ground for anything valuable. Stone and wooden gear is useless junk, but old iron weapons are still worth saving. The rest is destroyed, leaving 2 short knives, 4 daggers, and a long machete. The weapon the hobgoblin was swinging stands out as the ultimate centerpiece of the loot. Its leather armor is too shredded to sell, a real shame because intact it would have fetched a high price. Around the beast's neck hangs a rough green stone the size of a peanut dangling from a simple leather cord. A faint green light softly pulses inside it, and when he closes his hand around it, a warm, steady current flows through him. He does not know what it is yet, but anyone can recognize a valuable treasure, perhaps the captain. Goblin's abnormal size is connected to this strange stone. Quickly, he begins packing up the outside loot into a sack and heads toward the dark cave entrance, lighting a flaming torch before stepping inside. It is pitch black with thick green moss sliming the walls, and the air is foul with the stench of waste. It is quite clear these green-skinned creatures have absolutely no habit of keeping their home sanitary. As a rat scurries over his boot, he wrinkles his nose at the murky, bacteria-filled air. If it were not for the promise of decent loot, he would never set foot in this disgusting place. He carefully steps over a murky puddle that is far too gross to describe, finally reaching the wider chamber at the back of the dark tunnel. Piles of animal bones are scattered everywhere, covered in rats and crawling maggots. A crude stone pot sits right in the center over a pile of dead firewood. Inside is a thick, murky mixture of solid and liquid chunks that he is actively trying to ignore. It seems the tribe was having a major celebration last night, likely to mark the capture of those 2 village women. But that feast quickly became their funeral. On the back wall, hanging like a trophy, is a goblin corpse. It is slightly larger than the average runt, though nowhere near the massive hobgoblin size. Judging by the decay, it has been dead for several days. He raises his torch to inspect it. According to his guide, goblins are wicked, but they do not normally feast on their own kind, especially under a strong leader. However, bloody conflicts between rival bands do happen. He slowly pieces the clues together, suddenly realizing the truth, kicking himself for missing something so obvious. Their scout intel was incorrect because the hobgoblin was a powerful outsider. He invaded, killed the former captain of the 8 goblins the village was tracking, and took over. Their group ballooning their numbers from 8 to over 20 in one swift move. That is why the small raids on the village were minor for months. Before suddenly escalating overnight, this massive new horde was hungry, and their captain desperately wanted to make a statement. He grits his teeth, letting out a heavy sigh. Talk about terrible luck. If that massive hobgoblin had not arrived 8 normal goblins would have been an absolute breeze for the team they had built. Everything would have ended cleanly. He can only pray Belle and Mia make it in time, shaking his head. If his deduction is correct, the guild is not entirely to blame. Here still a harsh lesson is learned. From now on, he will never blindly trust other people's quest intel without checking things out first. With that resolved, he sets off back to the village, carrying a much heavier pack than before. He still has no clue what any of this loot sells for. He rests for the night, and by morning, he is on the road back to Grey Rock Town. On this trip, he plans to trade his spoils for coin to buy proper gear. He is a mage, yet he does not even own a magic wand. Genuinely embarrassing. He also wants to find out how professionals differ from simple awakened apprentices. How do you cross that gap? Grey Rock Town's familiar greystone walls rise ahead. The sight stirs something deep inside him. Maybe that is the point of a town. After spending endless nights out in the wilderness, braving the constant biting wind, and traversing rough mountain ridges, walking back through a familiar gate brings intense relief. That sudden warmth is hard to put into words. He shoulders his heavy packs, passing right by the gate guards to join the bustling crowd on the main street. He catches a few curious glances from kids on the road, feeling completely changed. It feels like an entire lifetime has passed since he left, somewhere along the way. He crossed into being one of those dangerous figures from the boy's memories. The ones he was warned never to provoke. He shakes his head and laughs softly. Dangerous? Hardly. A simple pack of goblins and one buff leader pushed him to the edge. He is still far from being truly powerful, but first he must submit the quest. He is filthy and covered in sweat, desperately needing a warm bath, but his rule is simple: always finish the job before taking a single second to rest. Otherwise, that half-done task will sit in his mind, ruining any chance of actual peace. He walks down the central avenue toward the square, where the guild's massive banner flies. The sword, shield, and staff emblems snap proudly in the cold morning wind. Inside, the main hall is packed, far busier than during his last visit here. Long queues stretch from every single counter, so he picks the shortest one to wait. Eventually, he reaches the front and finds Petra working the desk by pure coincidence. Employee E21051 greets him once again. Recognizing him, she watches as he hands over the commission scroll and a heavy sack. He presents his metal adventurer badge, explaining that he is here to collect his reward. She thanks him for his hard work, opening the sack to examine the proof inside. She counts the severed goblin ears, pausing as she notices something highly unusual. He explains that the intelligence was completely wrong and the threat was far greater. Instead of 7 or 8 monsters, they faced a massive horde of 20. The chief confirmed it in writing, causing Petra's polite expression to shift instantly. She apologizes profusely, admitting it was a massive oversight on the guild's part. The extreme danger they faced was entirely the guild's fault, and they must take blame. Bowing deeply behind the counter, she promises to report this directly to her superiors. An official investigation will be launched immediately to verify the exact numbers. Due to the extreme risk, she explains the guild will double his total payout. He nods silently, at least they're trying to make some amends. But let's be real, the guild is an absolute titan. They do not openly abuse their power, but a low-rank newbie has zero voice. He has absolutely no influence against them, even in a small town like this. If a bad intel report gets a weak adventurer killed, what happens? Another desperate novice simply takes their place the very next morning. To them, they are just roadside grass. Only real elites control their destiny. Out of the corner of his eye, he spots a group of high-tier warriors. Heavily armed guards salute respectfully as the elite party walks up the stairs. Meanwhile, the rest of the crowd shuffles in line, feeling the massive divide. Scattered everywhere in this guild, Petra explains that the reward for his commission comes out to 9 silver coins, plus compensation, making it 18 silver coins in total. She pulls a secure coin pouch from beneath the counter and places it down before reaching back down for something else and sliding his adventurer badge back over to him. He claims the coin pouch and His badge, a massive chunk of those 18 silver coins, actually belongs to Haley and the rest of the crew, and he has no intention of touching their split. A deal is a deal. His personal cut is 4 silver and 50 copper coins, bringing his overall savings up to 5 silver and 12 copper coins. Total, as for the rest of the loot, he keeps it all since he did the heavy lifting during the battle and is only just starting out on his journey. Besides, Haley already agreed to those terms beforehand. Petra then notes his quest data is officially recorded on his guild badge, prompting him to ask what that actually does. She explains it tracks progress, and completing 10 normal quests unlocks beginner-level jobs, knocking out 3 of those beginner runs makes an adventurer eligible to apply for bronze rank. Bronze status comes with better guild perks and extra buying privileges. But she warns him that those beginner-level jobs usually involve threats meant for real professionals, even with 10 normal quests under his belt. She still would not recommend trying one until he is absolutely ready. When he asks about his current status, she reveals he is completely unranked. Above bronze, the ranks climb through iron, silver, gold, and finally the legendary platinum rank. She mentions that platinum rank adventurers are so rare, only 5 have ever existed in the entire kingdom of Karl. They stand at the absolute peak of billions of fighters, transcendent figures above any normal scale. He nods, committing the basic system to memory, but the true shocker is the sheer rarity of those platinum ranks. Seriously, only 5 in history. How crazy is that? Curious, he throws out one last question, asking Petra how someone becomes a true professional. Apologizing, she explains she cannot give him an answer, as she is just an ordinary guild receptionist. Under his questioning gaze, she simply shakes her head with a helpless little smile, confirming she lacks the authority. He thanks her and steps back, noticing an impatient, spiky-haired older man in the next line, practically ready to shove him aside. Moving along, he heads toward the exit while keeping her cryptic response at the forefront of his thoughts. It seems highly unlikely she is truly ignorant, working at the main guild desk. Daily means she is bound to pick up all kinds of insider secrets. Either she actively withheld the truth, guild rules forbid discussing it openly, or she simply knew a massive crowd waiting behind him was not the place to talk. No big deal, right? It was just a casual try, and he already has other leads. Stepping outside and crossing the busy plaza, a dark stone building catches his eye. Tucked away in the corner with a sign reading Black Anvil Workshop, the surrounding air grows noticeably warmer even before he draws near, while it might not look like much. This place is widely known as the absolute best blacksmith in Grey Rock Town. Every other forge in town is a distant second, and he should know since he used to work here. Back when he first arrived in town, he worked odd jobs and saw plenty of things. Elite adventurers who looked seriously dangerous would drop by to buy gear. But most of the Black Anvil Workshop's customers are still low-level rookies. Alongside elite armor, the shop produces a steady stream of cheap, basic goods, crafted by the apprentices while reselling second-hand gear on the side. The budget gear isn't pretty, but it is sturdy and honest. It's more than enough for ordinary adventurers. When he was first kidding himself out a few days ago, he considered coming here, but worried about his thin wallet, and when elsewhere today his pockets are much heavier, he walks inside. The Black Anvil Workshop is split, with the storefront displaying basic gear on racks. Clangs of hammer on anvil constantly ring out from the backyard forge. A plain-faced, freckled apprentice greets him. As it turns out, he actually remembers the guy. They were passing acquaintances back then, so he greets him by name first. Marin, long time no see. Marin looks up, scanning him from head to foot, narrows his eyes, and then spots Gaus's emerald green eyes and gasps out in sudden recognition, remembering the face without actually recalling the name. Embarrassment crosses his face, so Gaus quickly supplies it. He is Gaus, and he still remembers Marin's name too. Marin laughs and reaches over to clap his shoulder, saying he sees way too many customers. Honestly, who can blame him? But then his eyes drop to Gaus's strange clothes. He asks if he stopped being a hunter. Marin has seen plenty of adventurers to easily spot the dusty, travel-worn look on him despite the cheap gear. Gaus nods, confirming he recently registered as an official adventurer. Suddenly, Marin's face falls. He admits he is incredibly envious, since his family won't let him do the same. In his memories, Gaus clearly recalls Marin complaining about his parents in the past. Unlike Gaus, who is just a drifting outsider, Marin is a Grey Rock Town native, whose parents paid good money to secure him an apprenticeship at the Black Anvil workshop, hoping he would turn out to be a working blacksmith. In this world, a blacksmith has a secure profession for life. For most ordinary folks, it is far more respectable than working as a low-level adventurer and risking your neck every single day. Marin, of course, sees things differently. He is restless, chasing a young man's dream of swords and magic sunlit roads through golden wheat fields, laughing with companions, slaying monsters, and feasting well in lively taverns. Sounds like the perfect fantasy, right? But that ideal picture in his head is just incomplete. What the fantasy completely leaves out is the reality, where most adventurers are not the wealthy, elite ones he watches. Heading upstairs, his dream completely ignores fighting among scattered limbs in the dark, sleeping in the dirt, and facing sudden, mortal danger. It ignores the cold loneliness that crawls in from the wilderness when nothing stands between him and the unknown. 2 days from White Birch Village back to Grey Rock Town was already enough to prove it. A week, a month, half a year, and that crushing loneliness only grows heavier. Maybe this is why adventurers form parties. It is incredibly hard for an ordinary person to carry that invisible weight alone. Still, Gaus doesn't feel like shattering his illusion today. Gaus keeps his thoughts to himself, letting his face show a small, knowing smile. He advises Marin against the life. No chance. The boy bristles immediately. He snaps. He claims Gaus is looking down on him and can easily match him. He has been saving up for gear, planning to register at the guild soon. Gaus keeps quiet. Instead, he smoothly steers the conversation back to business. He asks Marin to look over the loot and see what it is worth. He drops the sack. A heavy clatter rings out across the table. Marin opens it and gasps, utterly stunned by the massive pile of equipment. The boy mutters that he cannot evaluate this much gear on his own. Gaus figures the giant shop owner must be nearly 2 meters tall. He steps out of the back, carrying a massive forging hammer in hand. A leather apron binds his waist. It barely conceals his massive chest and stomach. He has short, cropped black hair and a stern, expressionless face. An eye patch covers his left eye, while his right eye shines brightly. The man looks dangerous. He is far more seasoned warrior than simple blacksmith. Honestly, who could blame the locals for assuming he was once a legend? Nothing is proven. Still, his forging skills are absolutely legendary. All the local adventurers trust him, and he immediately recognizes Gaus. Underneath that intimidating, rough exterior lies a surprisingly friendly and easygoing person. When Gaus first arrived, desperate for any temporary work, Glond took him in. Absolutely zero skills, yet Glond still gave him a chance. He did not stay there long, but his deep gratitude remains completely intact. He greets him warmly. Glond glances down at the equipment piled on the table. Glond mentions that Marin told him about the loot, and Gaus quickly confirms it. He explains they came from goblins. Glond raises an eyebrow and sighs deeply. He admits he never expected Gaus to actually go and become an adventurer. He hates the idea. He has seen too many rookies never return. The world is getting far more dangerous, he warns, examining the gear closely. As he inspects the weapons, he explains that desperate times bring more recruits. In peaceful eras, people choose to become scholars, craftsmen, or even simple clerks. When Glond was young, there were not nearly as many active adventurers. Now in Grey Rock Town, they make up nearly 40% of everyone. Even for a central hub, that ratio is incredibly high, he notes. Still, since Gaus is one of his former boys, he offers a favor. He will pay 10% over the market price, checking each item. The average machete is worth 25 silver, though it was poorly maintained. Next, the short sword. It is simply too damaged to resell. He can only buy it for scrap iron, meaning the price is small. He tallies up the entire haul, offering a total of 36 silver coins. Gaus thinks it over and nods, knowing the market prices very well. Once you factor in processing and resale, this is a very fair deal. He had no plans to keep that machete, as his strength is average. Swinging it tired him out quickly. Next, he pulls out the green stone. He pulls the glowing green crystal from his pocket, asking Glond if he recognizes it. He freezes. Suddenly, a rare look of surprise crosses his stern face. He knows he asked the right person. Glond tells him it is a life magic stone. Though he is not sure of the exact quality, since he is just a blacksmith and not a gem expert, he estimates it could easily fetch over 2 gold coins on the market. 2 whole gold coins. Marin, who has been hovering nearby pretending not to listen, looks completely stunned, as if he cannot believe his own ears. 2 gold coins is 200 silver, or 20,000 copper coins, for ordinary folks. That is a small fortune. His own pouch currently holds just 5 silver coins and 12 copper coins, the dream the original kid had of owning a small house in Grey Rock Town would be fully paid for with money left over for furnishings. To put that kind of money in perspective, a low-level laborer who can actually find work earns only about 10 copper coins for a full day. Even a single man, after paying for food and lodging, struggles to save 5 copper coins a day, and that does not even account for clothes or medicine. Even with steady daily work and a full month of labor, the savings only reach about 150 copper coins. 2 gold coins translate to 11 straight years of hard labor without a single day off. In reality, a low-level laborer never saves a single gold coin in their entire lifetime. Measured against gear, a set of leather armor costs around 15 silver coins, so 2 gold coins buys 13 sets. Medium scale mail is 60 silver coins per set, so 2 gold coins only buys 3 sets. Heavy armor like full plate is completely out of reach. A set of full plate armor is 15 gold coins, which is basically the price of 15 houses in town. Believe it or not, that is no exaggeration. Full plate armor is true heirloom property, the hard currency of this world. Real estate loses its value when war breaks out, but fine armor never does. Fine armor only appreciates. It is exactly because Marin knows what 2 gold coins can buy that he made that shocked face in front of his boss. He looks at him with envy bleeding into pure jealousy. Our hero tries his best to feign calm. He had guessed the green stone was a treasure, but not this level of treasure. Kind of treasure. Seeing the raw jealousy in Marin's eyes, he won't pretend he did not feel a little smug inside. In the original kid's memories, Marin was never bad to him. He was friendlier than other apprentices, willing to chat during the slow hours. There was also a subtle tone of condescension hidden underneath, in stray words like a city person asking about a country kid's life, just to be reminded of his own status. Marin was not a bad guy though. That condescension was completely unconscious. Now the tables have turned. He presses his lips together to keep his face completely blank. It seems even in this other world, there is a version of the classic saying about brothers, the one about being afraid a brother might struggle, but also afraid he might buy a fancy carriage instead. Glan tells him that if he wants to convert it to coin, he should head down to Widow's Alley, to the stone house with the sign reading Thorn Shack. The merchant there buys magical items, and Glan adds that if he knows any wealthy collectors, he could trade with them directly instead. Glan shrugs. 2 gold coins is a massive fortune to ordinary folk, but not to him. The blacksmith's surprise earlier was not about the stone itself though. It was about seeing a green, low-level adventurer producing a treasure like that. The pile of second-hand weapons had already exceeded all his expectations. Our hero thanks him sincerely. Glan is the most knowledgeable contact he currently has, with no other real connections in town. He gathers the nerve to ask for one more favor, saying that he apologizes for asking so many questions, then asks how someone becomes a mage. Glushes gives him a sharp look. That single question alone tells him everything. Normal people would never specify the mage path unless they actually had talent. That means awakened magic and a mastered spell, which gets the blacksmith thinking. His gaze settles. Now he understands why the boy brought back such a massive haul. If he is already on the professional path, that heavy loot makes perfect sense. Glushes glances at Marin, who is eagerly eavesdropping, then tells the boy to follow. He heads toward the inner courtyard, as Marin mutters about the manager being biased. The boy glances back at Marin's indignant face, letting out a soft laugh. Inside, several furnaces burn as apprentices work through the morning. The sharp ringing of hammers on anvils echoes loudly through the air. Hearing it too long causes a real headache, but Glushes opens a door. Though the boy worked in this shop before, he has never been inside. Stepping in, he looks around and immediately spots a set of full-plate armor. It stands on a rack near the bed, heavy, complex, and incredibly imposing. Dozens of silvery white plates are linked together by hinges and straps. The pointed helmet features carved cheek guards alongside a thick, raised breastplate. It rises at the center like an inverted ship hull with a long ridge. The piece looks like a frozen wave, carrying a cold, metallic shine. Layered shoulder guards look like dragon scales above heavy steel gauntlets. Sturdy battle boots complete the look. Ordinary plate armor costs 15 houses. But the masterwork in this room is on a completely different level. There is no gold trim, only the raw, violent practicality of true war. Comparing this masterpiece to the cheap stuff outside, he tries to guess its value. This gear is easily worth 50 houses, absolutely wild for a simple shop backroom. He is certain Glushes must be a master blacksmith and looks at him directly. Glushes clears his throat, telling the boy not to look at him like that. He insists he is just an ordinary blacksmith now, quickly recovering with a smile. He says any qualified blacksmith, naturally, knows a bit about professional adventurers. The boy nods immediately. Since the master said so, who is he to argue? Glushes shuts the door behind them, pulls out a stool, and gestures to sit. Starting with the basics, he explains that there are many races in this world. The most common ones are gnomes, dwarves, halflings, and strong half-orcs. Fundamentally, they are not too different from humans, sharing mostly physical differences. These differences are just external, but some highly special races exist too. Elves, dragonborn, banshees, and actual dragons carry incredible innate powers. But for anyone without bloodline gifts, hard training is the key to power. Those who develop supernatural abilities through training are called professionals. Glushes explains that countless professional paths have been explored over generations. Most have vanished into history, waiting for someone to dig them up. Only a handful of mainstream classes have survived to the modern day. Warriors, warlocks, mages, rangers, druids, and rogues are the mainline choices. They offer the highest power ceilings and suit almost any race. But suitability is relative because crossing that threshold is incredibly difficult. Out of 10 decent candidates, barely any make it. Perhaps only one will cross that line, or maybe even fewer. He figures the boy has already unlocked something. Touched upon the basic prerequisite skills for professionals, things like swordplay, combat techniques, or even magic. He pours a cup of water for himself, then one for the boy, watching him over the rim with a curious look. The kid simply nods back. There is no point in keeping secrets. The man is teaching him for free, and acting shady would just be unbelievably rude, so he confesses to mastering the mage hand cantrip and a first circle. Spell magic missile. Right on cue, the teacher chokes on his water, coughing into his fist to get himself under control as his gaze turns incredibly complicated. He admits the boy's talent is far greater than he imagined, asking if the spell awakened. Suddenly, right after his magic stirred, the kid nods, even if it was just a reward. From his system handbook, it certainly felt sudden. The teacher looks like he just confirmed a massive theory. He praises the boy's luck and incredible talent, adding that maybe the young mage does not fully grasp where his power comes from. The kid actually does. But he keeps quiet and listens. The master explains that some call this instant flash of insight heavenly blessing, while others believe the world is full of hidden combat techniques and forgotten magical inheritances just waiting to be claimed. Most people never encounter one in their entire lives, but once in a while, a lucky soul stumbles upon one and the power basically drops right into their lap. For everyone else, acquiring skills like spells and battle moves requires heavy studying from dusty books or direct training from an actual professional. Only after years of intense training do they stand a chance of mastering them. The master guessed the boy achieved this through sheer enlightenment, rather than formal study, knowing the poor kid never had the resources for school. Naturally, the young mage asks the obvious question, so mastering a combat move or a single spell makes someone a true professional. The master shakes his head. Not even close. That is barely the first step, the absolute entry point. People at this early stage are merely called apprentice professionals. To become a full-fledged expert, he explains that the chosen skill must be honed to a state of absolute perfection. Surprisingly, there is no real way to measure this point. It all comes down to pure instinct, but when a skill finally reaches that peak, the user starts to sense a strange, mysterious guidance from the world itself. This unseen force is known as the professional path. Once chosen, this path will manifest a hidden energy inside the body called a job rank. This job rank acts as the core source of their power, though even today, nobody has managed to define it with absolute certainty. The most common theory is that it is born from the very rules of the universe, meaning that by walking the path and constantly training, a person grows stronger. The boy listens, absorbing the knowledge while feeling a quiet wave of excitement. His unique handbook can actually measure his progress, giving him an insane advantage. He speaks up, asking if he simply needs to practice a spell to its absolute limit. To receive that mysterious guidance, and finally walk down the legendary mage's path. The master nods, noting that is the simple explanation, but the actual reality is never that easy. Mastering a single magic spell to the point of awakening guidance takes a lifetime. Most normal people never manage to achieve it. In fact, most practitioners will desperately need the tutelage of a legendary master to push through. And even if someone reaches that stage, the real struggles are only just beginning. The mysterious professional path will slowly begin to reshape their very body. A trainee's body must adapt. Some cannot handle this sudden, brutal transformation, and they require special potions, reagents, class transfer rituals, and rare treasures. To help them, these assisted promotion methods vary wildly by profession and by individual until the professional rank is completely condensed within the practitioner as officially a Tier 1 professional. Normally, this entire grueling road takes from 1 or 2 years to several decades. Gaus sits through the rest of his explanation, absorbing everything his memory can hold before standing up to bow. Deeply, no one in this harsh world is kind for free, even with Glon's good temperament. Professional secrets are rarely shared with outsiders for absolutely free. Because experts need limited resources to advance, and resources are scarce. Every new professional in the territory is just another competitor for the same pool. Glon is likely doing this because he thinks highly of Gaus and wants to invest in their future relationship, or perhaps because of the brief time Gaus worked at his shop, earning him this small favor. Either way, Glon shared many secrets, including that a mage benefits immensely from wielding a magic wand, not just for raw combat power. In daily practice, a wand accelerates the effect of every cast. He added that the life magic stone is a key material used to craft a wand. Toward the end of his explanation, Glon realized he had probably said too much, covering his tracks by claiming he heard all of it from a professional friend. Gaus lets the excuse slide since both understand the trade. Neither was going to say anything. Gaus announces his departure and Glon waves him off, telling him to return whenever he can before silently watching him leave. Behind him, Glon's gaze drifts, lost in thought. It is like he is seeing a younger self, walking out of another workshop years ago, full of the same burning ambition he once possessed. Broadly speaking, adventurers are extraordinary by nature. They crave the kind of dangerous life that ordinary people would never dare to walk. Marlin corners Gaus on his way out, boldly declaring his decision to become an adventurer like Gaus, refusing to remain a blacksmith any longer. Gaus warns Marlin that his honest advice might hurt his feelings. He thinks staying a blacksmith suits Marlin much better. Gaus exits the workshop with a lighter pack but a far heavier purse. His pile of crafted blades yielded exactly 31 silver coins and 12 copper coins after all the math settled. It should have been 41, but he spent 10 before leaving. There was a rapier hanging on the wall. He couldn't resist since his old dagger was almost useless after that brutal white birch fight, yet a reckless impulse in his head told him he might as well buy it, completely overriding his better instincts. He bought it for 10 silver coins, full price without haggling. 10 silver is a real blow to his wallet, but cheap for a long weapon. A rapier uses less iron than a heavy broadsword, lowering its floor price, and the shopkeeper threw in a friendly discount on top of that. Gaus inspects his new rapier while walking to the inn, liking it more with every single passing glance. The straight, slender blade was slim, measuring roughly a meter long and 2 fingers wide, with a raised longitudinal spine down the surface, catching the cold, silver-gray gleam of the metal, and a triangular point glinted sharply at the tip. The grip was wrapped in simple, plain leather with a basic crossguard, the whole weapon carrying that clean, unfussy beauty. He held the blade level, a true tool made for function, not decoration. His own blue eyes stared back from the flat steel, looking pretty smug. He had planned this carefully before spending his hard-earned coin. A broadsword is versatile, better against armor and mixed opponents. A heavy greatsword can crack chain mail, but a broadsword is still heavy. And his strength is only 5 compared to a constitution of 6. Swinging a massive weapon would leave him completely exhausted by the 3rd strike. Besides, his upcoming targets are just low-tier monsters that like to attack in packs. They nest in tight, narrow spaces where a wide blade has absolutely no room. A rapier is light, lightning fast, precise, and excels at both slashing and thrusting. It fits into tight corners, though it is practically useless against heavy armor. But how many basic goblins, slimes, or halflings actually wear any real armor? Hardly any of them. What he truly needs right now is a solid sword form. Goblins know nothing of combat technique, so wild swings are usually enough. But he cannot fight low-tier pests forever. Hobgoblins are out there. Two-headed goblins, even worse nightmares, exist. Now you might wonder why an aspiring mage would even bother with a sword. Simple, he refuses to let some close-range enemy view him as a soft target. They would step right over his corpse. Real combat relies heavily on sheer chance. If an enemy breaches his casting distance, thinking a wizard is helpless. He wants them to learn a lethal lesson. With his new sword, the commission is done. He decides to take a few well-deserved days off, though magic is always on his mind. He plans to drill magic missile constantly, but a proper hot bath comes first. He steps out of the bathhouse with heavy eyelids and a quiet hum in his chest. All the physical tension he had carried for a week completely melts away. Under the hot water, he feels the grime of the road washing right off him. 5 copper coins for the bath is absolute pocket change for him now. Having some actual gold makes spending a little money feel much more comfortable. There is no point in hoarding pennies, just to freeze in a cold wooden bucket. Slipping into clean linen, he notices his shirt is riding a bit too short. It used to fit perfectly. Perhaps that extra constitution point triggered a growth spurt. He is thrilled since he was barely over 170 centimeters tall. That makes him tiny next to other local adventurers, so a growth spurt is welcome. It is an absolute win. Feeling hungry again, he heads down to the Coral Tavern. It is easily the best tavern in town, a level above the usual spots. This is the very place Haley took the entire group before they set off. Stepping inside completely alone, he deeply feels the absence of his 3 companions. Haley and the crew should have reached Bari, and the girls are likely recovering. The coral is much more beautiful than he initially remembered. He remembered it yellow light on red brick, a bartender in. Casual clothes pouring at the bar, with massive oak casks stacked behind him like a wall. He could almost smell the rich malt of aged ale leaking from the staves. Iron. Chain candle lamps hung over a dozen elm tables. Every single table was rowdy with adventurers and weapons. It made total sense. The place was totally packed. These wild adventurers simply never keep day and night straight if they want to. Midday drinking is common here. These adventurers carry intense mental pressure. A long week of road stress forces them to bleed it off with alcohol. 3 to a table, men shout loudly while waitresses guide novices. Older veterans throw their arms around each other's shoulders. They eat greedily with bare hands, spilling more than they swallow. The savory aroma immediately wakes Gaus's empty stomach. He absolutely hates alcohol. But he loves food. After days of camp rations, he is starving. He could eat an entire cow. Claiming an empty table, he drops his pack. He sets his sword aside and waves off the menu as a waitress approaches. He quickly orders several heavy meat dishes and a jug of juice. An incredibly intense craving for meat has lingered ever since the white birch fight. He suspects his sudden physical growth spurt is fueling his massive appetite. With a constitution of 6, his body demands protein to keep growing. While waiting for his meal, Gaus opens his mental status panel. His physical strength and explosive power sit at 5, alongside agility. His solid constitution is 6, giving him excellent stamina and recovery. His impressive intelligence score of 7 powers his memory and thinking. Perception and charm both rest at a decent score of 5. Looking under his skills, his basic mage hand cantrip is now level 2. Its current proficiency is 15 out of 20, while magic missile is level 1. His magic missile rests at level 1 with 3 proficiency points. His basic mage hand skill jumped a clean 5 points during the recent white birch fight. This boost confirms his theory that practical combat builds skill much faster. And let me tell you, that magic missile progress was well earned. It gained 3 points from a single cast against the hobgoblin. On the dangerous road back, he never dared to use it again. The massive mana cost of a first circle spell is simply too dangerous for him. He could not risk running out of energy with only a damaged dagger. Right now, Gaus only has these 2 active magical abilities at his disposal. With shopkeeper Gland's advice fresh in mind, Gaus is stuck at a crossroads. The first step on the mage path is to master a single spell completely. Either Mage Hand or Magic Missile could be that core spell, but which? In terms of raw difficulty, Mage Hand is obviously much easier. Glan noted that most beginners choose a basic cantrip as their foundation. It is much easier to summon, cast, and is far lighter on mana. This allows for more daily practice to break through within a human lifetime. Arcane magic is heavily gatekept, and the untalented easily burn out. That is why proper mages get more slots in adventuring parties. Rarity is a kind of currency, still, choosing the harder spell has perks. Grinding a first circle spell creates a much stronger magical foundation. It fuses directly into his core skill the moment his class solidifies. While mages can learn other spells later, this core talent remains superior. It grows with him, costing less mana and casting far smoother. This ultimately shapes the unique innate talent his class will awaken. Just like a ranger might awaken special eagle, eye skills, or precision. A mage pushing a pure attack spell into their foundation awakens something truly heavy. Between a utility Mage Hand and a first circle magic missile, the core choice is clear. Mage Hand is just a utility, and even among other cantrips it carries 0 combat weight. Magic Missile is the absolute opposite. It is pure offense. Its destructive power is off the charts for its first circle tier. If Gaus pushes Magic Missile into his own foundation, the spell coming out of his hand upon advancement will far surpass any ordinary mage. And the talent he gains will likely be monstrous in the best possible way. Gaus swallowed hard and chose Magic Missile. The core skill defines his entire path. The harder spell hurts to grind, but he has the handy Adventurer's Handbook to give him a clean readout on proficiency, which is a luxury most apprentice mages never get. As long as he keeps practicing, that number will never drop. His immediate priority is a magic wand, even the cheapest wand. Cuts the mana cost of casting and speeds up his proficiency growth, compounding. Across every session, when the food arrived, it almost made him cry, real meat. Every cell in his body cheering, his body was satisfied, time vanished into chewing. He burped, completely blanked out, and was nearly asleep on the bench. When a gentle voice called him to settle the bill at 2 silver coins and 50 copper coins, he asked, still a little dazed. How much? The waitress repeated it, politely repeating 2 silver coins and 50 copper coins. A few days ago, Haley covered a meal for 4 at this tavern for 3 silver coins and 40 copper coins, and Gaus was scandalized then. Now 1 meal for himself cost almost that amount. He was the extravagant one, a single meal costing 30% of his monthly apartment rent. She handed him the menu, completely composed, and he looked. Fish and chips, air-dried ham with cheese, and thick charcoal-grilled steak with salt and olive oil, borscht, and several extra rounds he ordered because he was not full initially. He had indeed ordered everything that hit the table, adding it all up in his head. The bill was honest. The stack of empty plates beside him agreed. Outside the tavern, his chest still ached. Income goes up, consumption goes up. That is the law. The dizzying speed of his lifestyle upgrade was the real problem. He blamed the inexplicable meat craving from earlier for bewitching him. To be fair, his body felt amazing. Maybe that dinner paid down a debt his sudden growth spurt had run up. He called it an investment in himself. It does not hurt, right? Well, let us look at his cash. On hand, 28 silver coins and 52 copper coins. Greed is a slippery slope. The number looks huge until you start spending against it. It is hard to go from luxury back to frugality. His drive to earn spiked to match. Morning came. He walked downstairs to find Sophia mopping the lobby. She greeted him warmly as little Gaus and asked if he wanted breakfast. Leaning on her mop, the image of black bread and pickled vegetable soup flashed in his head right next to last night's massive feast. And he truly felt the gap. There was no going back from steak. He gave her an awkward smile and said he had no appetite today. Sophia's gaze on his back as he walked out was wounded. He left her at the door, doubting her own cooking, which was unfair because her cooking was fine. None of her other tenants would have even noticed. Now she was going to fret about it all week. The morning bell rang and Grey Rock Town woke up. Street stalls lined the road. He spends 4 copper coins on 2 meat pies, silently telling Sophia in his head that he is sorry. He is a total carnivore now, and bland soup will not cut it. His newly boosted constitution point demands meat. Thankfully, the pies are incredible. Way better than they should be, but he would never admit that aloud. The contrast with dry black bread makes them taste twice as good. Next up, training. He is practicing magic missile today. The trusty mage hand gets benched. Its usage is cut back hard. He fears triggering his class path early. Locking a weak 0 circle cantrip into his foundation would be a disaster. He would regret that forever. Currently, his mage hand is sitting. At level 2, 15 out of 20, he is not sure when the path triggers. Maybe at level 3 or 4, after breakfast, he walks out of town. There is absolutely no room inside the town, gates to blast blue magic around. Thankfully, the outer plains are massive, letting training adventurers spread out. He walks far out until the closest person is just a tiny speck. Finding a quiet, empty patch of grass, he closes his eyes to focus. It has been several days since his last magic missile. He needs that feeling. That successful cast took extreme focus, and resting in town dulled his channels. He calls the spell. Blue light flickers in his palm, then instantly dies. This was expected, as first circle spells are never friendly on the first attempt. But just like with Mage Hand, repetition will get him there. He calls it again and again, rest, then try once more, after countless attempts. He notices that this spell, unlike Mage Hand, costs mental energy even on failures. Mage Hand misses are free. Failing magic missile leaves a real, dull fatigue. That headache lingers. Fortunately, his intelligence is 7, giving him speedy recovery. He recovers way faster than average, lying down on the cool grass. Letting the warm sun hit his face, he is ready to try again. Finally, he feels it. A breeze sweeps by, bringing that same indescribable spark. Mana flows cleanly, concentrating in his palms while drawing in the surrounding magic. The ambient energy weaves together, and a magic missile starts to form in his hand. Since no monsters are rushing him, he can actually inspect it. It is a clear sphere of energy with a pale white outer shell. Rapid mana currents swirl inside like braided water, harmless to him by design. A faint pressure in his mind suggests he can steer it. He focuses, and the projectile shifts by a tiny fraction. The steering control is real. But his proficiency is simply too low to utilize it. He closes his hand around the missile, lobbing it toward an empty patch of grass. The instant it leaves his hand, it accelerates in a straight line, rushing forward. It hits maximum speed instantly, dragging a beautiful blue trail behind it. A loud boom echoes upon impact. Brilliant blue energy bursts violently open, looking like daytime fireworks. When the thick smoke finally clears away, a spiderweb-cracked crater, wide as a forearm, is left behind. A fist-sized concave pit sits right at the center, an absolute success. His adventurer handbook chimes inside his head, adding a clean proficiency tick. First circle magic missile reaches level 1, 4 out of 10. He is exhausted. His first circle magic missile reached level 1, 4 out of 10. Tired it was. This went way better than his first strike against the hobgoblin. No freezing up this time. His head still felt heavy and stuffed with cotton, so he lay down to wait it out. A successful cast only drained about 5 fatigue points, compared to the toll of a failed run. He spent half an hour resting in the grass before the brain fog finally started to clear. His 7 points in intelligence were already paying off. Recovery was normally slow. Others would need a full night of sleep to recover. For him, it took a long blink. His mana pool was slowly creeping upward day by day, not fast but steady and reassuring. It was the kind of steady growth that kept him sane. Still, his pool was too small. It was not quite enough for first circle spells. 1 week after awakening, he was limited. His reservoir had not caught up to the cost of magic missile yet. Could he actually trim the mana cost of a single cast? Talk about a genius shortcut. Maximum power magic missile felt like total overkill. Even at the lowest tier, it wasted energy. Too much mana simply spilled onto the ground. Against a normal goblin, he only needed a fraction. 10% of full power would likely kill it. Against that hobgoblin, 30 to 50%. That would have done the job, meaning the rest was wasted. He needed to cut that cost. Even saving 10 or 20% would be a massive win. It would shorten his recovery time. That would let him restart drilling much sooner, instead of waiting around in the dirt. Currently, every single cast forced a 30-minute lie down in the grass, which was terrible. This was no way to grind proficiency. He sat back up after another rest to try again. Closing his eyes, he found the mana channel much cleaner. The pathway was still warm. He started the cast, and then actively cut the flow the split second the mana moved. It was much easier said than done. Once a cast begins, the mana flows like water. Stopping it midstream takes incredible control, but his high intelligence came through for him once more. He managed to break the flow on his very first try. Now came the hard part. He had to drop only a portion of the mana. Spells are essentially pre-built programs. Normal casting only requires you to trigger the right cue and let it run itself. But the real challenge of magic is building that program inside your own mind first. You have to construct it using books and the teachings of elder mages. The downside to using a program you did not write is you cannot tweak it. You cannot easily tune a black box program's inputs from the outside. He needed to intercept a tiny slice of that mana the instant the cast launched. The math in his head was simple enough, but the actual execution was not. How much should he skim, and how could he do it without breaking the spell? He repeated the cycle endlessly, failing, resting, and then refilling. He kept pushing until the evening glow painted the lawn in warm orange light. By then he had scaled Magic Missile down to 95% output. A 5% skim did not sound like much, but it was a start. Before even a 1% trim made the entire spell fall apart completely. He was moving in the right direction and just needed to keep pushing forward. He walked back to town with an empty stomach. 5 days of silent practice passed. He trained from dawn until dusk. His proficiency with the spell steadily climbed. Magic Missile finally reached level 2, with proficiency at 1 out of 20. His mana pool grew right along with it, expanding his capacity day by day. If a full power spell cost 1 unit, his pool began at exactly that. By the end, it sat at 1.5, a massive 50% increase. He could now hold a magic missile at 60% power, what he called a 0.6 missile. With 1.5 units of mana, he could cast 2.6 missiles with a tiny remainder. The closer he pushed to his absolute limits, the harder adjusting the magic became. Magic, much like an engine, needs a minimum fuel burn to fire up, so he stopped drilling. 5 days of constantly draining and refilling his mana had ground his mind raw. It was pure torture. He had promised himself a break after the White Birch Commission. But instead, he had only pushed himself harder. He shook his head with a faint smile. The grueling training was an investment. Every drop of sweat now was a lifesaver later. Having this new magic missile in his back pocket gave him a genuine sense of safety. A 0.6 missile would shred that hobgoblin without any trouble. Plus, he could cast it twice, if that terrible night at White Birch ever repeated. He would not be the panicked kid clawing desperately at the dirt anymore. The heavy pressure under his chest finally eased, the dread he had carried since waking up here. He had desperately needed to arm himself because this fantasy world was far from kind. Now he finally had a solid foundation among low-level adventurers who lacked a class. His sheer offensive power was probably in a league of its own. He was itching to hunt some goblins and test his new tools. Sophia caught him at the door. She called him back for breakfast. He promised he would next time, and she let him go without arguing. Spell drilling had given him all it could for now. He was now heading to the Adventurers Guild to check the quest board. After reaching level 2, the easy proficiency gains had started to dry up. Live combat would build his skills far quicker than dry casting in an empty field. Besides, his monster compendium had been stuck on the exact same number for days. 11 total kills with the next stage at 50. Constant training had sharpened his axe. Now it was time to chop some wood. There was also the issue of his bleeding funds. His small hoard had been quietly draining all week, leaving him with 26 silver. And 15 copper coins. Losing 2 silver in just a few days was mostly due to food. And that was with him consciously eating at cheap street stalls instead of the tavern. Even buying meat for nearly every meal should not have drained his wallet this fast. He refused to blame himself, pointing the finger at the ridiculously high price of meat. You would think a fantasy world would have figured out cheap meat production by now. Instead, a basic steak cost a small fortune. The system really needed a reality check. But his hunger was not going away. His mana pool was expanding every single day. His body was growing in slow motion, and his internal engine demanded protein. If he tried to survive on simple vegetables, he would end up sick within a week. Besides, training was already painful enough, and he refused to live like an ascetic. He was not going to live like a starving monk. That was never his life goal. He walked straight into the guild hall, which was packed as always. The morning rush felt exactly like housewives fighting over supermarket discounts back home. Adventurers crowded around the boards, hunting for any decent quest. The novelty of the place had completely worn off. Then he noticed something strange. A A few well-dressed adventurers were loitering, staring blankly at the board. They never actually took any quests, and he saw the exact same faces every visit. He quietly suspected the guild kept them on payroll just to look busy, and tricked the rest of the rookies into snatching up commissions quickly. He quickly shook those wild theories out of his head and read the notices. Gathering quests were out. They required too much aimless time in the forest. He lacked harvesting techniques and preservation experience. Escort jobs were out too. The official town government bounties paid terribly, and those hunting zones had been swept entirely clean by other adventurers. He wanted civilian-posted gigs. Weak bottom-tier monsters like goblins rarely dropped items the market valued. So the only clients willing to pay were desperate villagers pooling their money. People often wondered why a whole village could not handle a few goblins. On paper, the math favored the humans, but the reality was quite different. The previous owner of his body had wondered the exact same thing. But after talking to locals in White Birch, he finally understood the problem. Small monsters coordinate in packs, giving them a massive edge over loose humans. The rough terrain and dense jungle never suited an untrained peasant militia. Real combat demands blood, and simple farmers simply lacked the willpower to fight. Even if one or two had courage, they could never rally the rest. His goblin-slaying feats were not standard, since his current body belonged to a hunter. That gave him physical fitness way beyond the reach of any ordinary person. Furthermore, his high intelligence stat practically slowed down time during an intense fight. Add magic weapons and the team led by Haley, and he looked like a god of war. Strip those advantages away, and he would just be a peasant holding a stick. Since villagers lacked these options, they scraped coins together and hired the guild. This had become a long-standing habit across the continent, keeping adventurers in business. He suspected the guild quietly nurtured this dependency to guarantee a constant supply of work. After all, no quests meant no guild. He scanned the board but struggled to find an easy match. Gaus wanted a small target group with low power under 5 beasts. Those existed, but they were rare. When the threat was minor, villagers did not pay. And if they did post, novice adventurer groups snatched them up instantly. The weak must huddle in groups, while true predators walk entirely alone. Competition was fierce, so he let his eyes drift toward the crowded corner. That was where freelancers gathered to form temporary parties for upcoming quests. Not everyone had a fixed squad, and some jobs required teamwork. That was exactly how he had landed the job with Haley last time. Near the massive sword statue in the corner, several small groups were actively recruiting. A passionate, red-haired youth was calling out for help to clear an underground cave. He was promising that the slime cores would be their big payoff. Slimes were the standard novice introduction to the wild world of monsters. These acidic swamp creatures could easily corrode cheap gear and crush a rookie. They were weak alone, but incredibly dangerous if they stuck to your weapon. The recruiter spotted Gaus and immediately invited the dark-haired apprentice to join. Gaus felt tempted but quickly dismissed the idea of entering wild underground caves. A rookie never knew what lurked down there, and a predator could easily block the exit. He shook his head politely, apologized, and walked away from the group. Another adventurer approached, asking if he was a swordsman due to his rapier. Gaus clarified that he was actually a humble mage apprentice on his journey. It was a title for someone working hard toward the official mage profession. No real professional would ever count a mere mage apprentice as one of their own. True pros do their business up on the guild's second floor, not down by the recruitment wall. Plenty of apprentices in the hall loved to call themselves warriors, rangers, or rogues, but the mage in his title still cuts through. Mage apprentices are incredibly rare on the recruitment wall because most are already snapped up by squads, while full professionals have a balanced spread. But among apprentices, mages, priests, and warlocks are extremely scarce because the entry threshold is high, and commoners without family backing cannot afford the skills. Heads turn toward Gaus as a tall, burly man pushes past. The crowd clapping him on the shoulder before anyone else can even open their mouths. The stranger tells him to ignore the rotten fish and shrimp around them and join his night owl squad, who are short a mage, and Gaus wants to try it out. "Hey, big idiot," someone yells from the crowd. "Who are you calling rotten? Fish and shrimp, forget it," someone else mutters. "Do not provoke him." The young man completely ignores the chatter, waiting for an answer. Gaus honestly admits that he is not looking for a permanent squad, having only come in this morning to slot into a temporary team to sharpen his skills. Gaus commands his mage hand to lift the rapier at his hip as simple proof of his magic profession. The big man just laughs and waves it off, saying temporary is fine, even if Gaus had asked to officially join, the squad would not vote yes without watching him work. First, he introduces himself as Levin, the shield-bearer, listing them as an archer, an assassin, a swordsman, and a priestess. Gaus follows his pointing finger and looks over. There are indeed 4 people by the wall, the archer carrying a dark long bow showing 0 reaction when Gaus looks. The assassin is heavily hooded, and under the cloak, Gaus catches the outline of a small crossbow at her waist. The swordsman has the exact look expected for his role. Meanwhile, the priestess sits huddled up against the wall, clutching a wooden staff with curious, wide eyes fixed on Gaus. He is highly tempted. Their composition is clean: a long-range archer, flanker, assassin, shield-bearer to absorb damage, frontline swordsman to deal damage, and a priestess for healing. Even without Gaus, this team could easily clear most low-level commissions. He asks Levin what mission they accepted. Levin tells him not to worry, it is just 15 goblins padding his chest, a pre-professional squad with no missions outside their capacity, saying this job is a mere warm-up they have completed over a dozen times. Seeing Gaus leaning in, Levin speaks even faster. 15 goblins is totally acceptable. White birch was 20 plus and irregular, and they still made it out. This squad is clearly a tier above Haley's 3. With more active bodies, given where his own offensive power stands now, no surprises should mean a clean job. Gaus extends his hand, calling him Captain Levin and giving his name, saying he is glad to work with them. Levin shakes on it with a bright smile. Joining a low-level elite squad to grow in the shade for a while is not a bad move. Gaus needs skill proficiency, money, sword training, and compendium kills. Besides, he cannot simply walk into the Emerald Forest swinging at random and expect to survive. A fully equipped squad with a priestess for healing offers a stable environment, and these people seem sober-minded. No reckless missions, just steady progress, no need to rush. The rest of the Night Owl squad ran pretty cold compared to Levin after he introduced himself. The others just shared their names and preferred weapons, then immediately went silent. The priestess stole a couple of glances at him, but seeing nobody else talking, she chose silence. Meanwhile, the cloaked rogue greeted him in a single, incredibly brief sentence, and went right back to wiping down her short sword. Until she spoke, he fully assumed she was a man. The archer and the swordsman were the quiet sort, too. Fair enough. After all, you cannot demand cheerfulness from a stranger you just got bolted onto your team. If their elite reputation was real, this cool reception was perfectly on brand. It suited him anyway. He always felt uneasy when strangers got too warm too fast. Levin wrapped it up. Rest this morning, joint training in the afternoon, meet at the guild entrance, and tomorrow at the bell, gather at the town gate to depart. Job earnings will be split based on contribution. Understood, Captain. The cloaked woman waved and was the first out the door, and the others quickly followed her. Levin noticed him lingering and told him not to take their cold attitude to heart. They were good people once you earned them. He then took him over to the front desk to register on the temporary roster. The Night Owl squad, like any officially registered party, had paid the guild 50 silver coins to certify as a proper squad, and registration came with some pretty solid benefits. Certain agencies specifically request a registered squad, believing a fixed team with established synergy easily beats temporary hand-picked group. Just affording that 50 silver coin fee is proof enough. Plus, registered squads can raise their squad rank alongside their own personal ranks, which encourages early registration. It makes recruitment much easier, too, because freelancers comparing different offers will naturally lean toward a registered team. Once registered, he said his goodbyes to Levin and headed off to pack. Their final destination was near Mill Village, not as far as White Birch, but still not a simple one-day walk. The whole loop of resting, gathering intel, and fighting would take 3 days minimum, so he bought dry rations, water skins, and spare clothes. He also picked up a set of leather armor, knowing he would need it. Anyway, it cost 15 silver coins, which was pretty steep. Still, the defense was a real step above his cloth armor, with the weight and flexibility about the same. The leather armor shop bought his second-hand cloth, set back for 50 copper coins, which had cost him a full silver coin not long ago, and had only been worn through a single job where he had ambushed a lone goblin and barely tested it.